morning, everyone. We're going to call a meeting of the Carson City Board of Supervisors to order. Today is Thursday, August 21st. It is just 8:30 a.m. We are in the community center at the Sierra Room at 851 East William Street. Could we have a roll call, please, Alan? Good
Supervisor Abel, Supervisor Bonkowski, Supervisor McKenna, Supervisor Shirk, Mayor Kroll. You have a quorum present, Mr. Mayor.
Could we call our good friend Bruce Henderson of the Airport Road Church of Christ to get us started on the right foot? He's taking the place of Mr. Locke this morning. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning. Thank you. Let's pray. Father, we come to you on a beautiful Carson City morning. But we pray on behalf of our world that has some situations that are not real beautiful right now, Father. A time of war, time of rioting, time of persecutions, time of disease, and we even read in the news about beheadings. It's appropriate this day, Lord, that we declare an international week of peace and nonviolence. We would ask for such, and perhaps only you can bring that, Lord. And we ask for justice and help and healing. We have a great meeting this day planned, Lord. We're going to present some awards for length of service. We appreciate the faithfulness of these city employees. I'm going to talk about money today. We're going to talk about buses and money and subdivisions and money and bonds. And I would ask that you be with this board and give them each the wisdom of Solomon and the love of our Savior as they make decisions. We pray in his name. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're now on item number 5, public comment. This is the public comment at the beginning of the meeting. Anybody want to discuss any topic as relevant to or within the authority of the body? We usually take public comment as we go through each agenda item and at the end. So, good morning. Ms. Bagwell, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning. Thank you. Since it's not on the agenda anywhere else, what I'd like to request, are we going to receive a public report on the storm damage throughout the city, the pros, cons, what went well, and what the impact
Yeah, I think we
was
are.
for storm?
It's not on, but I think the city manager, you're going to give us a little update, I think, when at your report towards the end, I think, or not. You can bring it up.
Or even if it's at a future date, it's okay. I'm just interested in what our impact.
There's been consideration of going to City Hall. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. All right. Well,
I think we'll have we're going to have an official report ready the second board meeting in September.
Okay, good. All right. I thought I saw some information going around, so good. All right. All right, anybody else? Okay, then we'll close item 5. We'll take up the adoption of the agenda. I'm told that item 14D, which is the bonds, and thank you very much for your comments this morning. You know, that's good stuff, you know. I was waiting to say, you know, money on that one as well, because it all gets down to money somewhere for us. We're going to pull item 14D. That'll be taken at the next item. There was an issue with respect to getting that one timely on the state website. So in an abundance of caution and in compliance with the open meeting law, we're going to delay this one and take it up at the next agenda item. So we'll take off 14D. We will continue to, however, to take up the issue of the retention of bond counsel. Any other matters that we need to know about?
No, sir.
All right. Board members, anything we need to change on the agenda? Okay, unless there's an objection, then we will take the agenda as posted and go from there. We now have a good the special part of the day for agendas.
Agendas posted.
Yeah.
14D.
Right. Supervisor McKenna corrected me. The actual statement I should say is we're going to take the agenda as adopted with the exception of 14D. Thanks, John. All right. We'll now take some special presentations. Could I call on Barbara Scott? Is she here? Come on up, Barbara. And then we're going to also do special presentations to our employees. Why don't the board recess and we'll all come down here on the ground floor here. Good morning. How are you? How are you?
Terry, I'm Barb Scott.
Barb, how are you?
Rita.
Rita. Okay. All right. So we get through. I'd like to read a proclamation for the International Week of Peace and Nonviolence. I think Bruce Henderson raised that issue this morning in his word to us as we got the day started. This is the International Week of Peace and Nonviolence, September 21st to the 28th, 2014. And it reads as follows. Whereas September 21st is the International Day of Peace as established by the United Nations General Assembly in 1981. And whereas peace is the goal of all moral people and societies of the world, and whereas the United States ranks 101st in the 2014 Global Peace Index, and whereas social ills arising from violence, poverty, and climate destruction undermine peace, and whereas the nationwide campaign, Nonviolence, has invited all people of faith, conscience, and benevolence to speak publicly for an end to violence and war and poverty and environmental destruction, September 21st to 27th, and resolve to create a culture of peace and nonviolence. Now therefore, I, Robert Kroll, Mayor of Carson City, on behalf of the Carson City Board of Supervisors and the City of Carson, do hereby proclaim the week of September 21st through the 28th as the International Week of Peace and Nonviolence Week, and encourage all residents to promote peace in all that they do. And Barbara is here. Barbara, let me present this proclamation to you, and please have a few words with us,
Thank you
please.
very much. Thank you. Well, of course, we want to thank you for taking this public stand. Part of the goal of the campaign for the week is to actually launch a movement where as citizens we no longer accept violence as something that's common in our everyday life. We've been living with it, it's what makes the news, but I realized when I was thinking about this morning that actually most citizens, I think, not as publicly as yourselves, but many of us are actually working to make things better in our homes, where we work, in our churches, in our communities. You know, probably most of us are actually working in large and small public ways like you all do, and I bet like every person in this room does, and all the people certainly that are going to receive their awards today. We're all working in our own ways to make our lives better and our communities better. So I want to thank you for making this public proclamation, because you're going to help add to the momentum where we actually don't accept violence as something that is a necessary part of our life, but where we create a culture of peace and nonviolence. So thank you very much for this. Yeah. Do you want to say?
You're welcome to stick around and join with us here.
Thank you. Get to work. Thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to talk to some of our employees today. I think I have a good list of everybody who's here. Let me get it ready. First, could I have John Wilkinson? John, come on up. John, as everybody knows, is the IT director for the city. He's been with us for 5 years. Keeps us going. Did the Outlook change pretty well? Real well, as a matter of fact. Okay, on behalf of a grateful community, thanks for all your work, and thanks for your 5 years of service to our community. John, come on up here and introduce. There we go.
We all appreciate it.
Is Robbie Cook here? Robbie? Yeah. Come on up. For 10 years of service, I'd like to call up Robbie Cook, firefighter and paramedic. 10 years of service in our community.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being on the front line and for all you do. And on behalf of a grateful community, please accept this as a token of our appreciation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Carrie Maxwell? Morning, Carrie. Support specialist for 10 years. Whew, that's pretty good. Good morning, Carrie. How are you? On behalf of a grateful community, please accept this certificate of appreciation and award as a token of our thank you for helping make our city a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Come on.
Thank you.
And Stephen Olson, Deputy Sheriff, Stephen? Come on. Good morning.
Morning.
How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Okay, how's our city, all right?
Better?
Better? Good. All right, man, I like that. This is Stephen on behalf of a grateful community. Thanks for 10 years of dedicated service to our community and making sure that we're all safe around here and being on the front line. Thanks very much from all of us. So come on up here. Thanks.
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
And Samuel Saunders, Samuel, come on up. Good morning to you.
Morning.
10 years, huh?
Yes, sir.
How's it feel?
Excellent.
Good, good, all right. Samuel, is it Samuel or call you Sam?
Sam's fine.
Sam, on behalf of a grateful community, please accept our certificate of appreciation for 10 years of consistent service to our community. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
We're gonna have to kind of scoot around, so when we get over here, we'll go over.
Sam?
He didn't make it. Okay. You want to take, oh, this is, that's Sam here. Maybe you got the wrong one. It goes, I think. There we go. Okay.
Good try, guys.
Our last award this morning, I believe, certificate goes to Matt Putzer, Deputy Sheriff for 25 years. Matt? Oh, he's not here? Okay. So how about James Colatori? Not here either?
He's on a call right now.
He's on a call? Do we have everybody then?
Yep.
Okay.
No, Jeff, that's Scott. Special award.
Special.
We have one more.
Special
Okay.
award.
Okay. Okay, we have a special award. Where's Jeff Linscott? Jeff. This is, okay. Good morning. This is the Longevity Award for 10 years of service. Thanks for letting us present this award to you. Thanks for all you do on behalf of our community. I know you guys are in uniform and otherwise are always out on the front line making sure that we're safe and healthy and taken care of in our community. So on behalf of a grateful community, please accept our thank you. Okay. All right, did I miss anybody? Got them all? Okay, thanks. Thanks to all the uniform factors. Thank you. All right, now we're gonna get
A picture.
a picture. Okay, we're gonna go to two rounds. We'll all get close to each other. I know we don't like to do that very often.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick you up.
Thanks.
Yeah, get a little further back so they don't see me as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah, thank you. Come here.
Okay. How you doing, Sheriff? Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's take up item number 8. This is the sheriff, the OCJA grant, 150 grand, $150,000. I should not be, yeah. Thanks, Sheriff.
Okay.
Walk us through this one.
This is an action item to accept the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance Grant, for the Regional Gang Initiative in the amount of $150,000. Just a small update, the Regional the Regional Gang Initiative is going extraordinarily well in all three counties. We continue to work more proactively today than ever before, and that's probably a tribute to the folks that are out there doing the job. Significant to this is these are folks that are working across jurisdictional lines and doing very, very well of being respectful of each of the jurisdictions' priorities and responsibilities.
Questions? This grant, from my perspective, this grant's worked extremely well. I mean, it's a big deal, so. Anybody? Brad? Or Karen?
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Ken, I think this is money well spent. I just have a question on $37.59 needed to make up the difference. Where's that money coming from?
Lord, they told me. Nickster? The offset of the grants, these grants are applied for before our budget processes. That offset in the difference is absorbed through.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Nick, the question was, the grant money's the difference, the $3,759, where is that money coming from to offset the grant?
I don't know. Come on, the sheriff's budget.
I assume it's coming, yeah, I assume it's a general fund match.
It's
right?
part of that general fund match.
Right, that's what I'm assuming, it's a general fund match. Do you do it in kind, or do we have to actually pay money?
We actually pay money.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Kenny, in our staff report, we only have the statistical data through 2012. Do we have the 2013 data yet? Or if not, do you know when we'll have it?
Criminal data?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, I've provided it to Marina for our next go-around where we talk about community health and welfare.
Okay, so that's
2013
coming up.
ended up being the best year we've had in the last 20 years of similar measurable data. It's just been phenomenal, and we're right now sitting at about 10% better than 2013.
Okay. So we'll get that in the next month or two?
I believe that briefing's coming up.
Yeah, I think it's coming up on the 28th at the special board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions from the board? Public comment? Anybody? Okay, motion's in order. Supervisor Bankowski.
I move to accept the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance Grant 14-JAG-02 Regional Gang Initiative in the amount of $150,000.
Motion by Supervisor Bankowski, second by Supervisor Abel on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thanks, Sheriff. While you're there, let's take up the CJA grant for TriNet.
This is an action
8B.
item for the TriNet Narcotics Task Force grant in the amount of $78,500. It is, as a matter of fact, I did speak with the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance just this week. It's a regularly declining grant, and I think that that's a good thing. This one's been going on for many, many years. Currently, we have the state, Douglas County, and Carson City engaged in this grant opportunity and operations in that regional area.
Got a couple questions up here. Brad, then Karen. Thanks.
Yeah, this is a question for Nick on this item and the previous item. We're only accepting the grants. Do we need to approve or authorize the additional funds coming out of the general fund match?
No, I don't believe so.
No?
I believe it's kind of all coming back to me now. I apologize, but these amounts are budgeted. So, I mean, we've got the entire the expenses budgeted for the TriNet task force is budgeted in the general fund, and then we have an offset with the grant. So it's already budgeted. This I know this TriNet grant has been ongoing for years, right? Yeah. So we take that into consideration on the revenue side when we do the budget. So the expenses are all budgeted. On the revenue side, we assumed that we were going to continue to get this grant, and if we didn't, then we would have to do something different. We would have to come back and do something different.
But on both of these, on the previous item, the budgeted amount was $73,699, and they need an additional $3,759. And on this one, there's an additional $4,500. So I'm talking about those differential amounts.
Right, and I don't know.
Above the budget amounts.
I think you're just talking about the match amounts. I think we actually have the expense amounts budgeted, and I think we've already taken account the match amounts in the budget. So that, I think we're fine.
Including these additional amounts?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's my recollection.
Ken, the only question I have is, since this is TriNet and it involves Douglas County as well, do they participate financially in any way, or is it strictly like a labor force match type of a thing? Is that?
They participate the same way we do.
Okay.
We each get portions of this grant.
Other comments or questions from the board? Public comment? Don't hear. Motion's over to Supervisor Bonkowski.
I move to accept the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance Grant 14-JAG-03 TriNet Narcotics Task Force in the amount of $78,500.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor Abott on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's take ICL. The treasurer came in. Let's take up item 9. This is a potential notice of sale. Good morning, Al. How are you doing this morning?
Morning, sir. Doing good. Al
Good.
Kramer, Carson City Treasurer.
Why don't you, we go through this
Every year.
periodically every year. Why don't you tell us, so everybody on watching knows what's going on? And
Essentially, these are properties that have not paid their taxes in 4 years. This is the 4th year. And it's time that I bring in as a notice to you that these properties could be sold. If taxes aren't paid, they'd be sold at auction, approximate time the middle of February. The next step on this is to go to a title company and get a list of all people with an interest in the property so that someone's not overlooked. And then we send a 90-day letter to them saying if taxes aren't paid at the end of that 90 days, it will be scheduled for auction. And then when we advertise them for sale, that there'll be an auction, a person has to, within 5 business days of that date, to come in and pay off the taxes, or it is sold at auction. As you may or may not be aware, this is my 20th year as treasurer, and we've had 3 properties sold in 20 years. 1 the first year and 2 last year, so maybe this will be another year with none. But as you can see, we still have a considerable number on the list, although 2 of this list have paid their taxes since this was prepared. And so we're whittling it down, and I fully expect that by the time February comes around, there'll be none on the list.
Good. And I know you work with, I mean, as much as you can under the law, you work with people to make sure that we, do everything
Yes,
we can
sir.
to try and keep property in the right hands. So thank you, Al, for that. And Kathy, if this passes, make sure that the date on the notice references February 20. Because now it says it's approved. This is approved by February 17th, 2015. I think it should be. Is that right, Alan? On the back, take a look.
It does say February 17th. Yes, is when we'd have the sale.
Yeah, but on the 2015.
Yes.
It says approved though. We're not doing it then.
Well, there's really potentially one more step that could happen. If the taxes weren't paid on these properties, and the city or a school district or the university system thought there was a public interest in them or the city owning that parcel, a motion would then be brought to the board for acceptance of that property if the taxes weren't paid. We're not doing that now, but that's a possibility also that could happen, which means that 90-day letter that goes out actually says this could be sold at auction or it could become public property. So sometime between now and whenever that auction sale is, if the taxes weren't paid and there was a public purpose for the property, then I'd be bringing it to the board saying, do we want to keep it? And here's Public Works, or here's the school system, or somebody who said this would be a public purpose. But at this point, all we're saying is we're taking the next step towards going to a sale. And if we have that sale, it'll be on February 17th.
Okay. I got you. Neil, I think we ought to look at how the language on this, because it's kind of, I mean, we're not approving anything in February, but I understand what Al's saying. We're putting the process in place. You want an order that says, hey, we're going to sale, and this is the order that actually is out there, so that you can go to the courthouse steps. So I understand. Neil, we'll take a look at this, okay, on the process issue there, the formality. Okay. I don't know who was first. Supervisor McKenna.
Al, this is kind of a education question. It has to do with water and sewer fees. The document here says taxes, costs, penalties, and interest legally chargeable against the property. Water fees are collected or are added to as a lien by the city. Are they collected through this process?
Yes,
Are
and
we-
and
do we
when
lose
that
them?
happens, the way the law states is that those water fees are then collected as our taxes are collected in the same manner in the same time frame. So when I say taxes, they're treated as taxes at that point. They are part of the tax bill.
Okay, so there's no loss of, we don't just go for the property tax, we go for
Everything.
everything they owe us.
That's correct, yes. And by the way, there's been situations in Carson where we've had a slope that was eroded, and we had to come in and do some mitigation, and the cost of that was also put on the tax bill and would have been collected on something like this too. Or if there was a house that was in such shambles as to be a hazard, and we had to send a crew in to make it less hazardous, that would go on here as well. And they're not taxes, but they're fees and costs that would be collected when the sale was made.
Well, and that happened out off of Arrowhead and that sort of thing with the house that burnt down and the person was an estate and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, that was a while back, yes, yeah.
Al, there's 2 properties on the list here that were deeded over to the city last year in
Yes.
June. Are they why are they still on the list? Why were they not sold last year? And does that mean that they're actually in their 5th year of not paying taxes?
It means they are in their 5th year. Last year, they were represented by an attorney. They were in bankruptcy, represented by an attorney. The bankruptcy was, let me restate that. There was a court case on it. It wasn't bankruptcy, and they were before the district court judge. And one of the factors in the outcome of the case was that if this person continued to make payments at a rate that would pay this off not soon, but since the property was up for sale, the judge basically said if they make these payments on this schedule, don't sell the property, and when they sell the property, it'll pay off the taxes. And I was okay with that judicial order, but then they stopped making their payments. And so this is a consequence of not living up to your, as opposed to going to the court and asking for a contempt order or something like that, we'll just sell the property.
So that's on one of them. What about?
That's 2 of them.
That's for both of them?
Same owner
thing?
for both, yes.
Oh, okay, great.
It says differently, but one of the owners is a deceased mother, and the other is the daughter, and the daughter has control of both properties.
Other comments or questions from the board? Public, anybody? Seeing none, Supervisor Abad, go.
I move to order and direct the Carson City Treasurer to sell after giving notice of sale for a total amount not less than the amount of taxes, costs, penalties, and interest legally chargeable against the property as stated for the list of properties set forth in the agenda posted and published for this meeting.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous.
sir.
Thank you, Al, very much. Okay. All right, we'll now take up item 10. This is the assessor. This is a possible reclassification of an hourly clerical position to management assistant 1. It's been through the IFC, Internal Finance Committee. We have Mr. Dolly here this morning. Why don't you tell us what's going on, and we'll see where we go with it. Thanks, Dave. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Thank you. Included in the board action form was a 2.5-page letter which kind of summarized exactly what's been happening with my office. Being that I am an elected, as well as all the other elected departments, when the city was asked to make cuts as far as their departments, all of the electeds obliged by that, and we actually cut. We actually started cutting way before the actual decrease or the market went south, because we lost Walmart and Kmart, Super Kmart, pretty close together. And so we knew that we were going to be losing a lot of the sales tax revenue, so we actually started cutting at that point. In 2005, I was able to actually get another person, because that's when they passed the Nevada legislature passed the property tax cap law, which talks about verifying whether or not the property is owner occupied or what have you. And so at that point, we did need another person. However, with one of the cuts, I was asked I had a person leave, and I was asked not to fill that position, which I did not do. The problem now is the fact that the workload is getting a little too heavy for me. I've had two of my senior appraisers who retired last year, so we hired 2 new appraisers, but trying to get them up to speed is time consuming, and it's involving a lot of my time, which now is going to doing payroll and paying bills and doing a lot of the functions that I'm hoping this office assistant or this management assistant one will be doing. I currently have an hourly employee who's currently working on the exemption program, and she's doing the owner occupancy verification as well as the rental affidavit verification, but she will be taking over this responsibility if you do approve this. So I'm just asking for to approve this part-time person and make her a full-time person.
Thanks, Dave. Board comments? Brad? Brad, or did you have a comment then, Jim?
Yeah, I did.
Go.
Your department, you voluntarily agreed to participate in the employee efficiency study.
Yes, sir.
Which will give us a good idea of the workload and the positions needed. I would assume that you're pretty comfortable that that's going to reinforce your position here. I guess what I'm looking for is how do you give us an assurance that the position is needed until that happens? And then my only other comment, which I spoke to you about, was that in our board packet, it speaks a lot to the money that you've been able to manage and save from the technology fund. But I see that as a completely different issue, and I don't think, we either approve the position or we don't approve the position, and it's a general fund position that's paid for it. I don't agree that we should use semantics to say that we're going to pay for that position through the technology fund savings when that money should be used for technology return to the general fund, which is what you've been doing.
Yes, sir, I agree with you. And the issue is when we went to the IFC meeting, I went there because I don't have funding. Yes, I was able to hire undergrade when I hired my 2 new appraisers, but I don't have any money. I have a small services and supply budget that goes to publication of the secured roll in December and goes to my office supplies. And so I don't have a lot of savings. I don't have a lot of places that I can save. And so trying to find the budget for this, I didn't have it. So I went to the Internal Finance Committee meeting and I asked them, I said, I don't have this. And they had mentioned that I had refunded, or I had given back to the general fund the $60,000 this year, and that we could actually use that money from the general fund to fund this. This is a one-time thing. Next year I have to go and I have to ask for a supplemental in order to get this position and keep this position as a full-time person. This won't be happening again. The only reason I gave back money to the general fund this year from the tech fund was because I don't have it designated for anything. Next year I do, because I have to pay for another flyover, which we're already contracted to do with pictometry. And so that money is already spoken for next year, so I won't have the money. So it has to go through the supplemental process. As far as the position being needed, currently as it stands right now, when I balance my money drawer, because I have a money drawer, we collect some funds. The majority of the taxes and so forth are collected by the Treasurer's Office, but we do collect some funds for reports that we submit and moving permits and so forth. I balance that budget, and then I have one of my employees approve it, which is, in my opinion, not a really good checks and balance. I think it should be going just the opposite way. And so I think for me it would be more comfortable for the financial part of it. But it's absolutely necessary because I have my chief appraiser right now who is doing all the purchasing for the office. I have my personal property appraiser who, anytime there's a claim that needs to be filed where the city has to actually issue a check, my personal property appraiser has to do that. That's taking time away from her job of collecting of discovering personal property that needs to be taxed. And so all of these items they're taking away from other appraisers' jobs, which they need the time to do that now. And so I have absolutely no doubt that it's needed. And I have no doubt that when the efficiency study is done, that they'll see it's needed.
Morning. Just a couple of my perspective is,
I think it's ironic that you come to us for our approval to hire somebody for your department, which you're an elected official, you have your own budget. Personally, myself, I think if you need somebody and you find the funding, I don't think you need our approval. That's just my opinion. I just think it's your department, you run it, your budget, and if you feel you need somebody and it's within your financial means to do that, I don't think you need our approval, although it's on our agenda. But I think maybe that's something this board could look at in the future. Do we really need to give approval to other agencies that have their own budgets, our approval? Just my personal opinion. That's basically all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shirk. I think the reason why it is come to you is because I didn't have it in my budget. I don't have a large budget. The majority of my budget is made up of salaries and benefits. And
right.
So I think I'm down to 20,000 in services and supplies. Like I said, I don't have a lot of room to cut anything.
And I understand that, and I know where the money's coming from. I'm just thinking in the future, when we're coming down the line, I think that's something we should look at as a board. We don't need to give you approval to hire somebody down the line. That's what I meant.
Supervisor, if I could just point out, there is an impact to the general fund here, and that's why the assessor came to the IFC, and that's why he's standing in front of the board this morning, sir.
And I agree to that. I understand that. I'm saying in the future, you shouldn't come to us when you need to hire somebody within your own budget. I don't think you need to be here. That's what I'm saying.
And if it's my understanding, then if I have an appraiser or somebody retire and I want to fill that position, I have to go to the IFC to get that approval to begin with. Whether or not it's just somebody to replace that person, I still have to get the IFC approval on it.
Dave, I appreciate you and the other constitutional officers working with the city on this type of thing. I just worry about the other constitutional officers now having a flood of requests, because I've heard from other people that we cut our budget. The city now has potentially more money through more revenue. Why don't I restore those positions? And not your office, but others. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but it's how are we going to hold the line on keeping the city small if we approve needed requests, I assume, and approve you personnel to do your job the way you feel it needs to be done, as people elected you to do. So it's this quandary of how we all get along. I would like to hear from the city manager on a thought that we deal with these type of things once a year at budget time and don't do them outside of the budget process, or that we set aside not just a contingency but a employment contingency so that we can deal with the actual needs of the constitutional officers, because the sheriff could be here tomorrow or next week asking for the same thing and have equally justifiable reasons to do this. Are we going to run the city based upon a period of time and a budget, or are we going to do it at every meeting?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts that might answer that question. First, at least within the scope of the contract, we do have the Moss Adams employee efficiency study that's about to kick off. That's going to get at least part of what could be the requirement in terms of the number of city employees compared to the functions and the requirements of those functions. So that's part of it. The other part is the Internal Finance Committee, the IFC, is set up to address these type of issues throughout the year. We can't help but have requirements that pop up, and I think we're well equipped to deal with it within the context of the IFC functioning, and then bringing those recommendations to the board. As the assessor said, for next year, it is going to be part of the budgeting process for the next fiscal year to keep this a permanent city position. So I think we have the processes in place and the oversight so that we are able to get at what the true requirements are to bring them in front of this board.
Could we have something like a Major League Baseball roster where you're allowed so many people so many positions for the city, and if we need one here, we take one from someplace else until the budget cycle hits, and then we expand the roster?
Let's see if we can stay on the issue here of this particular one, and because there'll be times when we can talk about the strategic planning folks, where we can talk about these things, but I'd like to see if we can stay within the confines of this request here, and if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly. So,
Mr. Mayor, I thank you. I think it's probably more appropriate at a planning session, but thank you, Dave. I cast no aspersions as to your request or your department. I was over there last week, and you have a very tough job.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make one comment. Supervisor McKenna, as I stated before, I'm looking forward to the efficiency study. I've been wanting it since the first time I heard about it, because I really have no doubt that they're going to say that this position is warranted. It's just the problem that it's taken so long to get it, that I'm to the point where I need this person, and I can't wait any longer.
This may be a question for Nick. If we approve the position but not funding it through the forfeited tech fund monies, where would the money come from and what would the impact be?
I assume you're asking me. Well, basically, the tech money is just going back into the general fund, and it's not earmarked for anything. So, Dave didn't use the money last year, and I think the statute basically says that it goes back to the general fund. So, that would be the appropriate use of the fund. That money is not earmarked. I believe it's about 50 or 60,000. 60,000 that was unanticipated money that we didn't earmark or we didn't budget this fiscal year. So it's new money that the plan is to have him fund that position for the rest of the year, and then bring back a supplemental request for fiscal 16's budget to determine, after the efficiency study will be done, we'll have all the other requests to determine if it can be funded. So basically, I think what you're approving is an unanticipated source of revenue that we're getting to fund this position, and just for the rest of the fiscal year. That's my understanding. And then next year, it'll have to be brought back to you, and you'll have to approve it again if it's warranted. And then we'll have, again, the results of the efficiency study and those types of things. So that money that he's giving back is just not earmarked for anything. It's just going to go back into the general fund, back into the pot.
Right, but it doesn't matter if we specify that funding source or if we just approve the position. It's coming out of the general fund.
That's correct.
Okay.
He's just telling you that there's unanticipated money that could help pay for this, based on what he did last year.
So in a nutshell, what you're saying is that for the total amount of money that has come into your department or been budgeted for your department, you're not going to exceed that for the year because you've already returned 60,000, and that's more than enough to cover this additional unanticipated expense.
Right. And that wasn't earmarked in this year's budget. This was from last year, fiscal 14. So that money wasn't spent. Okay. So it's money that wasn't spent that'll be, basically going into the fund balance that we can appropriate for this position.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, public, anything? All right, motion's in order, Supervisor Abott.
I move to approve the reclassification of the Assessor's Office hourly clerical position to a Management Assistant 1, using the monies forfeited to the general fund from the Assessor's Technology Fund.
Motion by Supervisor Abott, second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Let's take up the transit issue. Did you ride in on a bus?
My apologies, no. Patrick Pittenger, Transportation Manager, Carson City Public Works Department. I'm here before you today to discuss a proposed expansion of Jack Transit service into the evening. And I'm going to do my best to explain the action before you and the previous action by the RTC. I will note that I've gotten a couple of questions from Supervisors Bonkowski and Shirk, and I'm going to try to make sure to address those in my presentation. And in the end, if I don't, please make sure that I do.
I think at the core of a lot of what's going on here, you need to tell us why this doesn't come out of traditional RTC money. So talk to us about why this is a general fund issue, and also I know you're going to address the questions of a couple of the supervisors. So
yes,
go.
Yes, absolutely. To address the action before you today, basically how the Jack Transit system works is that it is by agreement. It's overseen by the Carson City RTC, which has the authority to operate the service. However, the transit fund that is used to pay for the operation of the transit system is dependent upon an annual transfer from the Carson City General Fund, which is currently $350,000 annually. So while the RTC operates the service, supervises the service, the Board of Supervisors on an annual basis in the budgeting process allocates a certain amount of funds to be transferred to the transit fund to allow it to operate. Most of the transit service is paid through federal funds, Federal Transit Administration funds primarily, along with fare revenues. We have some advertising revenues and the like. But a local, non-federal match is required, and that is it is essential to the operation of the system, and that is what is provided on an annual basis by the Board of Supervisors through a transfer from the general fund. The reason why I'm before you today is that the RTC has approved an expansion of the service. However, we don't want to expand that service unless we are very open about the future financial implications and a future change in future fiscal years to the required transfer from the general fund. And that's how there could be a future impact to the general fund, and that's why we want to make sure that we get out ahead of it and we don't surprise anybody next year in any sort of a budgeting process. The proposed service increase is an increase into weekday evening service. We have recently completed a short-range transit system development plan, goes several years out into the future. We looked at the operations of the system as well as requested improvements and different ways that the service could be expanded. There are different options if you were to expand the service. But the one way to expand the service, which has consistently risen to the top, which is evening weekday service. Those requests have come ever since the start of the system in 2005. We've done 2 sets of full onboard surveys of the riders of the bus system. One of them was done about 5 years ago. The second one was done April of last year, prior to the start of this transit development plan. And once again, expanded service in the evening was the #1 request that we received. Very importantly, we've received requests from other quarters as well. WNC has always requested evening service, consistently pointing out that they have. They've told me they've had as many people there in the evening as they do, in the early afternoon, just because that's the nature of the business that they conduct. We've also had requests from the disabled community, and very importantly, it's not easy to document this, but we have daily contact with our riders. Our dispatcher has daily contacts with them. Our bus drivers do, and we as well as staff also have contact, and it's consistently a request that we receive. We looked at a couple different alternatives for expanding into the evening. The most straightforward way to do so would be just to extend the hours of the current service, keep running all 4 of the routes plus disabled Jack Assist service until 10:30 in the evening. That would be extremely simple and straightforward. However, there is certainly an expense that comes along with that, and that means that you'd have to provide 4 regular route buses plus a bus for disabled service. Complimentary service. That'd be about 5 vehicles for 4 hours into the evening. So that would be a significant increase, and it was relatively expensive when we looked at our alternatives. What we have done is we have developed another alternative, which we believe can target the people who are most demand of evening service on the weekdays, and can be operated and tried out at a less expensive cost. The service would be that we would expand the entire bus service, all 4 routes, plus the service for the disabled, but only by 1 hour on weekdays. That would go from 6:30 evening, where it cuts off now, to 7:30 in the evening. So the whole service would only be extended by 1 hour, which would benefit the entire community. After 7:30 in the evening, we would only be serving primarily two types of riders. The first one would be students and anyone else who wants to ride from WNC. One of the issues identified is that people can get to their classes, but they can't get home. And we do have some folks from WNC here, and I've personally been working with Dean Kinkella at the college, and they explain the situation that people can get there, and then they end up staying there sometimes in the winter at 9:45 in the evening without a way home, which has been a long-standing issue for them. So we'd have one bus that was doing that, and then we would also provide, and you're required to do this, complimentary paratransit service. We would have a vehicle available on an as-needed basis only to transport disabled folks anywhere in the community. It wouldn't be tied to WNC. But it would only be out there as needed. You need to call the day before, and if nobody calls and says they want to ride at 8:30 at night, we won't be out there, spending money. We will only do it as needed, on demand for certified disabled folks. This would operate, like I said, weekdays only, and the WNC service would only operate on weekdays when they are in session. We're not going to have a bus up there, during winter break or spring break or whatever else. The current fiscal year, we do not require an additional transfer from the general fund. We did end the last fiscal year with a fund balance that is sufficient to cover the additional expense for this year. The additional expense for this year is estimated to be a total of $95,000, but approximately 60 of that would be covered by federal funds as well as fare revenue. So the local match required of about $35,000 can be taken care of with carryover balance, and no additional funds are required from the general fund this year. Going into the future, as we've indicated in the board form, we expect that the additional transfer from the general fund to the transit fund on an annual basis would be $60,000. The actual additional cost on average for the next several years into the future would be about $170,000, but $170,000 per year, but that is averaged. But out of that 170, 110 would be covered with federal funds and fares. 60 would be the local share. And I want to make sure that you know that we are, one of the reasons it's higher, the actual cost next year for the operating would only be about $40,000 locally, but we have to anticipate the acquisition of an additional vehicle because the additional service, the additional miles we'd be putting on would cause our fleet, frankly, to wear out a little faster. So we would need to add another vehicle to our replacement plans. So this does accommodate not only the operating but the capital as well that would occur during this period. I want to point out that as far as the federal funds are concerned, we've never had a problem with federal funds. These are not competitive grants that we're wondering if we're going to get every year. We get a notice saying your number is this. This year the number was $925,000. It has gone up every year that I've been here for the last 8 years. I checked with our accountant yesterday. We're currently have available to us over $2 million of federal funds, which is frankly more than an 18-month supply of funds. This year's money we don't even expect to use this fiscal year because these are so plentiful to us. I'll point out that our study also showed that one of the advantages of this is that there is no, it's very easy to implement. We don't have to build any new bus stops. We don't have to change routes or create new areas of no park. We don't have to buy any buses today. Yes, we'll have to plan for replacement in the future, but we don't have to buy anything today. There's about a year lead time on a bus, so that's very important. I mentioned RTC approved this at its August 13th meeting, the most recent one. And importantly, this will be closely monitored as we go. This is something that's relatively easily implemented. but it's also, it's something that we can modify in the future as we move forward. Even on a, like I said, if the disabled folks are not using it for an evening, well, we won't serve it. But we will monitor this, both with WNC and with our own ridership figures. The budget actually assumes that that we will always have a bus out there for disabled folks, so we think we're a little conservative that way, in a good way, because we don't know they'll always come. We do operate this with a contract operator, MV Transportation Inc. They are under contract for the next year. We're contracted for a specific number of hours. This would, if we were to implement this would indeed cause us to, later on in the fiscal year, exceed those hours. I've already been in discussions with their management, and they have agreed that should we move forward, they would agree to actually lower the rate, the hourly rate for any additional hours by 3%, because they do have economies of scale here that they're working with. And now to make sure that I've addressed Supervisor Bonkowski's and Supervisor Shirk's questions. First, I believe I answered yours in my presentation. Is that correct? Okay, good to know. And just to make sure for Supervisor Shirk, I believe that I answered your question as far as when we've conducted surveys and other public input received. We did have 2 public meetings as part of the Transit Development Plan. We did receive comment at those meetings. We also had members of the disabled community and other folks as well, including WNC representatives, appear at RTC meetings. We had this on the agenda 2 or 3 times. The most recent one in July, we had a good outcoming there. Let's see. Yep, I think I answered that one. Just making sure, go on your list here. You asked if there is an expiration date. That's part of the inspiration of coming here is that you don't want to implement, even though we have the money this year to pay for it during this fiscal year, we don't want to implement service and then, pull the rug out from anybody in the future. Should this be implemented, we'd like to go forward. One of the things that with all this federal funds, we've been trying to find ways to use it, but primarily spent on the capital side, the one-time cost side, whereas operating, you need to treat it differently because it's on an ongoing basis. You want to be able to keep it going if it indeed succeeds, and it's worth keeping going. And I believe I answered the questions, but please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd be happy to provide any other information you require.
Patrick, just to confirm, at the end of this fiscal year, we'd have the opportunity you would have the opportunity to relook at this to see how much ridership it actually did incur, and if it's a worthwhile process to continue and to apply for in our upcoming budget.
Absolutely. We'd be monitoring this. We get ridership numbers at least monthly, and we would expect that we'd be reporting back to the RTC at least by the middle of the year. We wouldn't wait till the end of the year. We report back to the RTC first, and then and certainly as the budgeting process proceeds in spring, we're going to know how we're doing, and then certainly that could be reported through the budgeting process and also to this board as required.
And Patrick, of course, John and I are both on RTC and Campo, and I just wanted to put on the record that this was a fairly extensive process to go through this. We looked at, I think it was 5 different possible options for expanding service for Jack, which has been a very successful endeavor for the city. Ridership has increased every year. There seems to be adequate demand. Ridership surveys show that people are happy with the system. So going through this process and looking at all these options, we wanted to find the option that gave us the most ridership for the least amount of money, and this particular option rose to the top very quickly, and it solves a need that's been ongoing for years, which you mentioned, which is that we have the ability to deliver students to WNC for their evening class, and then we strand them there, and they don't have a way to get back. So they either have to get a ride from somebody or walk or get a taxi, and during the winter that can be very difficult. So, there was a lot of thought put into this, and this did seem to be the best way to try expanding the service while still being able to measure it and get the most ridership for the least amount of money for the taxpayers.
Patrick, you mentioned that you don't want to, one of the inspirational, I think that's your word, was you want to kind of get a commitment out of this board that, that we will take care of this as we go down in the future, which I understand. And that at the same time, you made a comment that you don't want to start a service and pull a rug out from under it, and I got that. On the other side of that one, though, what I'd hope, and I know that the RTC is looking at this, and you would as well, is that, this is a new service, and if it's not generating the ridership that you need, that we not just build in, and hope that the market's going to come, that you actually do pull the plug on it, okay?
Yes, absolutely, sir. That is entirely our intent. I believe one of the RTC members described it as a use it or lose it, which is fair. We're not planning on. We don't intend to waste any money. We intend to take our best effort at planning a service which we believe is in demand, but we will measure that demand, and should it prove not to be successful, we're making no commitments that you'd continue to fund something that wasn't.
Very good. And do we have a bike path from the WNC down to? I'm kidding. Don't worry. You don't have to answer that.
No, I will answer one thing that's actually important, is that we do have a break in the sidewalk there at near WNC, which is a funded project for the relatively new future to complete that sidewalk there.
Jim, go.
And you did answer all my questions. Thank you very much. Just going back to the expiration date, if we approve this, it's $60,000 every year for duration of our life.
As long as this service is provided.
Long as service, so we could terminate at any time.
Yes, it could be terminated, but I'm trying to take a quite conservative approach, because transit service is not something you want to put out there and take away frequently.
Well, there's talk of the budget restraints coming up and money, so I just want to see what our options were down the line. Just out of curiosity, how many people ride it that additional hour? I'm just curious. If you have your surveys, you're extending service Monday through Friday from 6:30 to 7:30. What is a normal ride?
What you have right now is that we actually, as part of our survey, we actually not only did a survey of the folks, we also did detailed on and off counts of how many people got on at every stop on each route, and we know what time of day. What you find is that the last run of the day is usually one of the lowest ridership routes, because nobody wants to try to get on the last bus of the day, because what if you miss it? So what you'd expect is that when implementing this, you will get only a marginal increase in ridership on that route, but what we expect is that the one right before that will then increase, because people will feel more comfortable taking that bus at 6 o'clock when they know that it's not the last bus, as well as the ability to get to. There are some classes that you can't get to, even the later starting classes, WNC, you can't get to, even because we cut off right before you could even get there as well.
Thank you.
Patrick, 60,000 forever, 60,000 for next year. What are they actually buying into? Can this amount go above 60,000? Can it go below 60,000?
Well, the 60,000 is the amount that I would expect that we'd have in addition to the existing transfer for the next several years into the future, and that is an average of the need over the next several years, because you don't buy capital every year. So we want to have a consistent. I don't want to say 40,000 for this year and 80,000 for that year. I think it's better to have a consistent predictable funding level. Having said that, there are many variables that are not entirely within our control, just like the rest of the transit service. We don't control fuel prices. There are other factors that can make costs go up. So it's just as the original $350,000 that we get every year. That has not always been $350,000. That has changed over time, because we've had unpredictable events like the state pulling money that they used to give us. Suddenly we had a $40,000 hole. Things like that, unpredictable things like that are bound to happen, but not specifically related to this service. That's just inherent to the nature of our entity.
Board comments? Public comment? Anybody? Students? Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Riley Rose, and I'm part of the student government at WNC, or Harvard on the Hill, as we like to call it. I would very much love to see the Jack run late forever, but I know that might not be possible. One thing I would like to see is at least for a year. 52% of our students are actually nighttime students, and I work the front desk at the student center as well. And last year, it became quite a problem of kids being stranded on campus, and then they would send them to me, and then I would send them to the info desk, and who would send them to security. So it was just a big mess all the time. So I'd love to see extended hours and have kids get home safe and up to our nighttime classes.
Thank you, Riley.
Hello, guys. My name's Ricky, and I'm actually was the 52% students that didn't have transportation last year, and I feel like if we extend that, I'd feel like it'd benefit students from the future, and they'd be safe and they'd feel safe and comfortable using the bus instead of walking home. That'll be it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ricky, can we get a last name? Ricky?
Merlin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Harvard on the Hill, huh? I can remember that one. Harvard on the Hill. All right. Anybody else? Public? You know, my sense is I get concerned about these types of moves. But I will tell you, you know, that at the end of the day, I trust the judgment of the Regional Transportation Commission to, one, keep an eye on it, and two, I know that we need to, you know, Jack service is something we need to keep an eye on. And
Yeah, pull one of those. Actually, she could probably just.
I can get it pretty far. Come on up, Sarah. You all right?
Yep.
got it?
Yep.
Good morning.
I'm here this morning to say that I'm from Frost Yazmere on 5th Street, and there is a lot of disabled people there that are wanting the extended service because they want to go out and do activities, or they want to take classes at the college at night or during the day. And so that's one of my concerns, is that we want to have more ridership for the disabled. And I did come in on a bus this morning.
Very good.
Early.
You listened. I'm glad you're listening. And, did I miss your name?
Sarah Manny.
M.A.?
M-A-N-N-E-E.
Okay, Manny. Okay. Thank you for making the effort to come give us your thoughts this morning.
Yes, and I'm also representing someone that wanted to be here. His name is Sam Fleming, and he is a very good advocate for, he also has a disability, but he wanted to say that he wants it so that he can go out and do things too. And that's one of the things I think it should be for everyone. There's people saying to me, I want to go to a movie and a dinner, maybe, you know, halfway through my day or whatever. Or they want to go shopping, or they want to go to church, or they want to do different things. So I'm hoping that this will help get it going. And I've been taking the Jack Assist different places, so, and I think it's a great service. So, but I'm excited to see that they're going to be also widening sidewalks and getting around telephone poles so we don't have to be dodging them, and also making the bike lane wider. So,
Very good. Thank you, Sarah.
thank you.
All right. Go.
Can I explain what Sarah's talking about with telephone poles and the bike lane? On 5th Street, the telephone pole is in the middle of the sidewalk, and people that need the entire sidewalk are having problems getting down that. That's something we're looking at to, go ahead, Patrick.
Patrick Pittenger, just so you're aware, just an update on this, that project is out to bid right now. It's expected to open the end of the month, and we expect the project to award at the next RTC meeting on September 10th.
The other thing is during the winter when there's snow, that sidewalk becomes impassable, and so we're looking at dealing with that also.
Well, on a personal note, over the weekend, I had my 2 granddaughters, and they got a joint stroller, and I know what it's like to run into a telephone pole in the middle because you can't get around it, and you got to get out on the street, so I got you. All right, any further public comment? All right, I don't hear any. Want to bring it back here to the board? We'll go.
I move to authorize additional funding to the Transit Fund to support increased service on the Jump Around Carson transit system.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor Bonkowski on the motion. Discussion. As I indicated, for my own preferences, I think it's necessary service. I get worried about, this is not a blank check, but I get worried about, instituting things where, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And I know that that's just a function of, transit issues. But I do trust the judgment of the Regional Transportation Commission, and so that's where my vote's going to go. You go.
Patrick, could you address how you're going to account for or demonstrate this, how this project worked and how much it costs and that sort of thing?
Oh, certainly. We'll be able to, we track ridership on a daily basis, so we do know, the number and type of riders, and what we'll do is we will, like I said, we'll have counts on a monthly basis. We'll come back to the RTC and report on progress. If for any reason we have a proposed modification, we'll actually bring that back to the RTC for action prior to them. But we'll be able to track the costs as well, in that we the primary factor of cost is our contract cost with our contract operator. We'll see specifically the additional hours that we incurred. So it's all very easily tracked, and we'll report it back to the RTC as they wish. We'll plan to do so, but anytime anybody wants to report further, we'll be happy to provide it.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thanks to this Harvard on the Hill, Sarah. Thank you very much. Take the information back to Frost Yasner on 5th Street. Okay. All right. Where are we now? Let's take up payment of bills. I know the city manager walked. Oh, wait a minute.
Going out of order.
12, planning. Okay. This is the historical tax deferment property, 611 West Robinson Street. Good morning, Susan. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good. Susan Dorpansky for the record. This is a request by the property owners at 611 West Robinson for a historic tax deferment under the open space assessment. And I'd like to note that Supervisor Bonkowski pointed out there's a discrepancy in the summary versus the memo. The property is not currently receiving deferment. That is an error. This is the first request that they're asking for today. Historic Resources Commission did approve this request by a vote of 5-0 at their meeting in, I believe it was July. And staff is recommending approval as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Public comment, board comment? In addition to the historic, that deferment, I think, they deserve this deferment for just having to live next door to an eyesore for a number of years. Now that that's been, people are working on that to clean it up, and that's a good thing. But I want the McLaughlins to know, we all, since I go by that property quite a lot, I know what they've been putting up with, so. Okay. Somebody want to make a motion? Supervisor Bonkowski, go.
I move to approve a request from Jack and Cheryl McLaughlin for historic tax deferment on property located within the Historic District, located at 611 West Robinson Street, APN 003-243-01.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor Abad on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Dorpansky.
Mayor, if I may, maybe I missed it. Did you ask for public comment on that issue?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
I think
hear
I did.
Yeah, yes.
So I'm with you, Neil. Sometimes I get going and I don't know, so it never hurts to ask, man. Never hurts to ask. All right. We're going to take up 12B then. This is the potential extension of the PUD on Clearview Ridge. Go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a request by Roventini LLC to extend their currently approved planned unit development map for Clearview Ridge. This is a project for 73 residential units located off of Cochise, which is in the vicinity of the Save Mart Shopping Center in South Carson City. They received original approval in 2006, a development agreement approval in 2009, one extension, I believe, in 2012, and the applicant and his engineers have been working very diligently with staff to get their improvement plans in for their first phase so that they could meet the original expiration date of September 6th of 2014. They're very close. Staff is in the final stages of the review of those, but they have asked for extra time because they would like to work on some bonding concerns that they have, and so staff has recommended a one-year extension just so that they have time to get that taken care of.
Are you comfortable that they are indeed moving forward?
Yes, very comfortable, yes.
Supervisor Abad.
I had a discussion with Mark Newfer, I believe, on the phone, but I just want to clarify for the record, I was caught in the monsoonal downpour, the first one that we had up in that area where considerable amount of mud and runoff came from that hill, and I want to be comfortable that in the planning phase of this that we're addressing that issue.
Yeah, actually, the city engineer, Danny Rotter's here, and he can address that a little bit better than I can, so I'll have him do that.
Good morning, Mr. Rotter.
Morning. Danny Rotter, Public Works, for the record. Just wanted to let you know, subsequent to our last meeting, I've used the word subsequently multiple times, properly. Throughout this process, they've done a conceptual drainage study when they did the full thing, and then they've submitted a technical drainage study addressing the concerns with our stormwater engineer to protect the property from the west, and they're doing full improvements along the north and south roads as well. Applicant's engineer is here with any specific questions related to
Let's
that.
see where we go. I don't know. Okay. Anybody else from the board? Public comment on this issue? Anybody? Looks like we ready? Go motion.
I move to approve a request for a one-year extension for the tentative plan unit development residential subdivision known as Clearview Ridge, located west of Cochise Street between West Roventini Way and West Overland Street, APN 009-263-06, -07, -08, and -09, extending the time for filing the first final map to September 6th, 2015.
Motion by Supervisor Bunkowski, second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Susan, do you remember Tabitha Fittyman?
Yes.
She just took a job with the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
Oh, that's
Okay. Just a little update for you guys and that younger generation. All right. All right. All right, let's take up, now I'm on 13. Okay. These are the bills that you've paid?
Paying the monthly bills, correct.
Paying monthly bills? Anything in there we should know about? Other than, any in particular that we should know about?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay.
No.
Public comment? All right, motion's in order. Board, I assume the board's okay with these motions in order. Supervisor Abad.
I move to ratify the approval of bills and other requests for payments by the city manager for the period of July 8th, 2014 through August 11th, 2014.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor Bunkowski on a motion. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up 14A. Report of each fund. This is a statutory requirement.
That's correct, Mayor. Just,
Anything that's of unusual that we should know about?
no, sir.
Okay, public comment? Board comment? Motion's in order. Supervisor Abad.
I move to accept the report on the condition of each fund in the Treasury and the statements of receipts and expenditures through August 12, 2014 per NRS 251.030 and NRS 354.290.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. let's take up the item of the potential adoption of an infrastructure fund. This is 14B. Nick, you want to tell
Sure,
us what
thank
it
you,
is?
Mayor.
We've got a copy of the proposed resolution in front of us. Okay, go.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, Nick Providenti, Finance Director. So this is just basically a procedural issue that we're required to bring to you to establish this fund. So when the board established the 1A cent sales tax, what we're planning on doing is establishing this infrastructure fund to account for that 1A cent sales tax. So the revenues of the 1A cent sales tax will go into this fund, and all the expenditures will be spent from this fund. So we're just asking you to adopt the special revenue fund. It has to be adopted by resolution, by law. And, we had included, a proposed resolution, and then Supervisor Bonkowski had recommended some changes, and, we included the new resolution per late material. So I don't know if, Brad, if you wanted to go ahead and, talk about, the reasons why you think the late material resolution is better than, it's.
Sure. In line 13 of the original resolution, it says the proceeds of the tax will be used to fund certain public infrastructure projects as identified in the plan of expenditure. My feeling is that those projects have not yet been approved, so it should say may. And so the language has been changed to say the proceeds of the tax may only be used to fund certain infrastructure projects as identified in the plan of expenditure, which I'm happy with. Thank you.
Right. And I think it's important to note that we can only spend the money on those projects, but we don't have to spend the money on those projects. So if you decide to do 3 of the projects and not, all 5, you don't have to do all 5, but you can only do those projects that are in that plan. So hopefully that clarifies that. So.
Public comment, creation of infrastructure.
Resolution number is 2014 R24.
Mr. Mayor, I think I should probably disclose prior to this. I want to disclose that I own a business, Adele's, that might financially benefit or be injured by the corridor project, and where the independence and judgment of a reasonable person in my situation on behalf of all the citizens of Carson City will not be materially affected by the possible risks or benefits the corridor projects might have upon my financial interest in Adele's. And if there are any financial risks or benefits to my interest in Adele's, they are no greater than that accruing to any other member of any general business and profession, occupation, or group that is affected by the matter, and therefore I can and will lawfully consider, participate, and vote in this matter pursuant to NRS 281A.420.
Okay, motion's in order.
I move to adopt resolution number 2014 R-24, a resolution creating the infrastructure fund, a special revenue fund.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor McKenna. On the motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried, unanimous. Okay. We're going to pull, let me see, where am I now? I'm on the uncollectibles for the 14C, uncollectibles. We go through this a lot. This is a lot of money. It always is a lot of money.
That's correct.
And I know, we have a collection agency going down here. I guess, what strikes me is, and it does every year, that, how often our paramedic units and are used. It's just a huge amount, so.
Right.
Go ahead and tell us more about it.
Sure. So what we're doing is we're asking you to approve the application to remove the uncollectible accounts receivable specified in the records of the ambulance fund for a total amount of $552,503.94 in uncollectible accounts receivable. So again, this is for a 6-month period from January 1, 2014 through June 30th of 2014. And again, it does seem like a lot of money. I think it's just the nature of the business. We have taken these amounts into consideration when we do the budget. We typically budget $1.1 to $1.2 million in uncollectible accounts every year. And this is in addition to contractual write-offs that we write off, for Medicaid, Medicare and Medicaid, and other insurance issuers. So basically what we're doing is we're billing $100 and we're only probably collecting $45. That's the way we budget. That's kind of the nature of the business. So I know Stacy Jomi, the fire chief's here, if you had any specific questions, regarding, those issues, but.
Let's see if, I got a couple questions up here,
Okay.
so Brad and then Karen, so we'll see where it goes.
Good morning, Stacy.
I didn't see my name on the agenda item next.
I can write it in.
Stacy Giammi, Fire Chief.
Yeah, I'll write it on here.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm there.
Stacy, we changed collection agencies, correct? About a
We
year ago?
changed
year and a half ago?
our billing company, which is soft collects, not hard collect. So we
Right.
changed our billing company in July of 2012.
Right. And since that time, it appears, if memory serves me correctly, we used to write off about 700 or 800,000 every 6 months. So it appears that this company is doing a better job of billing, or that our follow-up collections are doing better. It seems like this amount is going down. Is that correct, or am I just crazy?
No, no, it's not going down. It's been.
And I'm not crazy?
I'm not going to say you're crazy, but it's not going down. It's been about the same. It's been about the same number. The number. What might be confusing is that we do it twice a year, and so the number we come to you with 2 times a year, and it was, we actually, with this amount, it would put us pretty much right on budget, maybe even a little below budget if we are able to write off the same amount next time.
And then where do you see this going starting in January when the 3% Affordable Care Act tax kicks in?
We're already seeing it get harder to collect funds. Medicare funds used to be a good source of revenue for us. We have a very high Medicare and Medicaid percentage of patients. We transport about 6,500 patients a year. Out of those 6,500, probably close to 60% are Medicare or Medicaid. And so where we really are able to recoup revenue is in the commercial insurance side. And our percentage of commercial insured people has dropped, probably 10 or 15%, because of changes in not only the Affordable Care Act, but changes in people's working conditions. And of the people who have commercial insurance, it's not as good as it used to be. So, I mean, I think we've all experienced that. So what used to be covered by insurance at a higher level is now covered at a lower level, meaning that a lot of that commercial insurance, there's a higher percentage that people owe, and it ends up becoming self-pay. And in most cases, people don't pay those bills. So I don't see it getting, that was a long answer to a short question. I don't see it getting any easier to collect revenue. I don't see it getting easier.
So do you see yourself working with Nick, looking at trends going forward to try to anticipate how to budget for this?
Yes.
In other words, you're looking at that saying it's going to get worse?
Yes. We are doing that. We work with our billing company. I just had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. We work with our paramedics because a lot of the revenue that we get is based on the narrative, the patient narrative that we write, and the quality of that patient narrative. So the quality of that patient narrative is very important on the back end in trying to get revenue. So we constantly work on those things. And what was the catchphrases a year ago are not the catchphrases today. So it's a constantly changing environment. Ambulance companies across the country struggle with this because it's an ancillary service, and it is going to get more complicated. We're part of the healthcare community now, and it's going to get more complicated. So we are watching that, to answer your question.
So the $64,000 question is, look into your crystal ball. Are we going to get to a point in the future where this is no longer sustainable?
We have to look at alternative delivery methods. We have to look at probably spending some money to save some money. And by that I mean putting some funds into alternative transport, such as we have already with our wheelchair service. And looking at ways to transport people without using the high-expense advanced life support ambulances that we're using now. We can't get rid of those, but instead of adding more of those, we can add a lower level of care and right-size the care to the people. That's the whole concept behind the Affordable Care Act. The only place we can transport people right now is to the emergency room. That needs to change because the cost of the emergency room is exorbitantly high. And we're transporting more and more people with less and less acuity problems. So in other words, we're getting calls for people who are less and less injured, but we're taking them still to the emergency room. They don't need to go to the emergency room.
Is that a federal issue or a local issue?
It's a national issue.
It's federal.
I mean, it's happening everywhere. It's just, it's the nature of the way, it really changed when the economy changed. It had started to change before that, but when the economy changed, it really changed because people lost their insurance and they don't have the ability anymore to go to their doctor. and they don't have the funds to go to an urgent care. So what do? They wait until they're either really sick, call an ambulance and go to the emergency room, or B, they know that if they call an ambulance, we have to transport them. We can't just say, no, we're not going to take you, and bring them to an emergency room that has to treat them, even though they're never going to pay either of those two bills. So those are all the things that complicate what we do. And that's what you're seeing here is we're writing off a good number of those people who don't have the ability to pay and know that they don't have the ability to pay, but yet continue to use the system.
And final question, do you see any room for a public-private venture for alternative transportation?
I have looked at that, and the issue with the privatization of it is the money and the revenue we get are from the transports that the private company is going to want. So if you give that up, you're giving away the cream, if you will, and you're leaving us with the curd. I don't know if that's how it works or not, sorry. But anyway, yes, a C and not a T, correct, Mayor, thank you. So to move that system into a partnership, and we are doing a partnership ourselves already with the hospital on our wheelchair van. So we have explored those options and taken advantage of them where we can. Nobody wants 911 business. No ambulance company wants it. They don't want it because it doesn't pay. What pays are those interfacility transports. And if you give those up, you lose the revenue. So it's a chicken and an egg thing.
So Stacy, it's more of an inability to pay. It's not the incapability of the billing agency or collection agency to collect.
Oh, no. Well, when you write it off, it goes to hard collect. So what you're actually writing off is moving the bills from soft collect or billing agency to hard collect. So what everyone thinks of as a true collection agency. They can attach your credit, they can put bad marks on your credit. So if they collect it, and they don't collect much revenue, but if they do collect it, it still comes back on the books as miscellaneous revenue. So the revenue, while you're writing it off, you're just writing it off from soft collect, it's still going to hard collect, and it continues to get worked. We still get, I just saw a letter yesterday from someone who was paying off a debt from 4 years ago because they're trying to buy a car, and they can't. So they're paying off this debt, they want it cleared, and now they're paying. So it does happen. And in some cases, people do have the ability to pay, they just choose not to.
Stacy, as Nick mentioned, it's just part of the business, the nature of it, and I realize you're doing your utmost to moderate and monitor where you're going, because I know you take those names, and I know you pass that along to other facilities here in Carson City if it's a repetitive name that you're going to their home on. At least that's a conversation I remember from the board prior to. But expanding how we can accommodate the needs of the community at a $1 million loss every year, it takes its toll. And over a long period of time, I know hopefully we can come to some mediation as to where we can provide service to the community, not such at a loss. I know you're undertaking that. So, and from your discussion already, from these questions, so I don't think there's much we can do. That's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, and that was my comment to you. We might be able to spend a little bit of money, say a couple $100,000, and reduce that from 1.2 million to maybe 900,000. So ultimately, we're saving money, but it's not the kind of savings where I'm going to be able to come in and give you money. It's savings in the reduction to a loss. So it's hard to wrap your mind around that, but that's the world that this is.
Are there alternatives like the REMSA nurse service, that sort of thing that we can consider?
That nurse service is actually in place in the community. Carson Tahoe has contracted with a nurse health line, and the nurse health line is active and operational in the community. The hospital started that service in July. You may have recently seen that they lost their marketing person. So I think once they get a new marketing person on board, they're going to start kicking that out. But that resource, that community health nurse line that Carson Tahoe will have, will engage people in services within the community. So if people take advantage of it, and instead of calling 911, call that nurse health line, they'll get directed to the proper level of care. And that's one of the things that we participate with the hospital in. And again, as I go back to saying, getting the right level of service to the right person at the right time. That's really what we're trying to do.
Will the 911 operators be
No.
able to refer calls to them?
We're looking into that process, but there's, I think that's financially not feasible. In the context of getting certified to provide that nurse health line, you have to jump through some huge steps that I think are going to be cost prohibitive. I don't think we're going to be able to get over that hump and having dispatch do that. So it becomes a matter of education. And a good number of our calls in this community originate in facilities that are healthcare facilities. The turnover there is high, so we try and interact as often as we can. We probably need to do a better job realistically of interacting with those healthcare facilities and educating them on the right level of care. And that's one of the goals I have for the next year to do, is to sit down with them and work on an education process so they're using the right services at the appropriate time. That's probably the biggest area we can make an impact.
Do you need the city to pursue any legislation in the upcoming session, or are you doing that through the Chiefs Association?
We are monitoring legislation. In fact, I've got to attend a hearing next week on some healthcare legislation. So we are monitoring those things. If we have a need, I'm not shy about asking you.
Anything else? Public comment? Anybody? I don't see anything, so let's do it. Supervisor Abel, make a motion, please. Thank you.
I move to approve the application to remove the uncollectible accounts receivable specified in the application from the records of the ambulance fund for a total of $552,503.94 in uncollectible accounts receivable.
Motion by Supervisor Abel, second by Supervisor Bonkowski on a motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, Nick, let's do we're passing 14D. We'll take up the potential engagement of Sherman and Howard as bond counsel.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, for the record, Nick Pavanenti, Finance Director. We're asking you to confirm the engagement of Sherman and Howard as bond counsel for a $5,342,000 general obligation limited tax water refunding bond, a $3,641,000 general obligation sewer refunding bond, and an $8,791,000 V&T historical refunding bond. Basically, in a nutshell, these bonds have been identified as being able to be refunded in the current market for interest rate savings. The last number that I saw, we're anticipating saving about $1.2 million over the life of the bonds, just based on the current market rates. So this is the first step. We're just engaging the bond counsel. We've already engaged our financial advisor through a different contract that we have, and we'll be bringing all this forward to you with more specifics in the next probably 6 weeks or so.
John.
If for some reason the bonds don't make it through the Debt Management Commission, do we still owe these people money?
No. No, these bonds are not going to the Debt Management Commission. The ones that are going to the Debt Management Commission are the 1A cent infrastructure bonds. These do not have to go to the Debt Management Commission. So next week's Debt Management Commission, they'll be hearing the 1A cent infrastructure bonds, and then that'll be coming back on next Thursday, the 28th, to this board.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick, and if you could just clarify that email I sent you regarding additionally secured by pledged water revenues, what that line is about.
That was not pertaining to this board action, Supervisor Shirk. That was pertaining to board action, the D that was pulled. And we'll be addressing that on the 28th. You were addressing 14D.
Correct, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Public comment? We always engage bond counsel. I'll just say, we've been pretty fortunate because we've never had a problem with the bonding issues, and one of the reasons why we haven't had a problem is that we have somebody like bond counsel looking at making sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's on these things. So, and it's a specialty that I know Neil and our group don't have. So, anyway, Jim, did you want to say anything here?
I'm sorry. Nick, one more thing, and again, I was misreading my own notes, I apologize about that. But I did ask you about the V&T. That's just a refinancing at a lower rate.
That's correct. Right.
Correct.
So basically what we did in 2005 is we levied the 1A cent sales tax to borrow money, and we granted the V&T that $15 million, and we're using the 1A cent sales tax to pay back the debt. So what this is doing is refinancing that loan at an interest rate savings.
Thank you.
I move to confirm the engagement of Sherman and Howard as bond counsel to Carson City, Nevada, in connection with the $5,342,000 Carson City, Nevada General Obligation Limited Tax Water Refunding Bonds, additionally secured by pledged revenues, Series 2014C, the $3,641,000 Carson City, Nevada General Obligation Limited Tax Sewer Refunding Bonds, additionally secured by pledged revenues, Series 2014D, and the $8,791,000 Carson City, Nevada General Obligation Limited Tax V&T Historical Refunding Bonds, additionally secured by pledged revenues, Series 2014E.
Motion by Supervisor Winkowski, second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, discussion's over.
Sorry, I did have my light on. I do want to mention that I did vote against this when it originally came through, but I cannot continually vote against something that's already been passed by this board. So I just want to clarify, my position was I was not in favor of this bond when it came through the first time, but as we move forward, I cannot continually vote no on something when it's already been approved by this board. So in that respect, I just want to clarify my position and why I'm voting yay on it. Thank you.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. Let's take up potential contract for professional service, the public-private partnership for the building department.
Good morning.
Mr. Plemmel, good morning.
For the record, Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. I'm going to give you an overview on this. I might need some, if I need some technical help from Kim or Nick with finance, might need some help with that on any contract technical questions, but I'd like to give an overview on what this contract is about. So this is an item to determine that this contract is a contract for professional services and therefore not suitable for public bidding pursuant to NRS 332.115, and to approve the contract for professional services with Charles Abbott and Associates to provide building department services for Carson City. So a little bit of a background. In your packet, about I think the third page from the end is the building department's organizational chart under the budget that we have this year, which includes building official. It includes 2 inspectors, one of which has never been filled, but we had a second inspector in there in anticipation of increased building activity in the upcoming year or two. And then we have two in-staff persons in that department. Recently, we had the building official leave and our one inspector that we had hired retired. And so at that time, we were actually approached through some other, through the Public Works Department recommending setting up a meeting, and Charles Abbott Associates approached us about the idea of providing these building services on a contract basis rather than hiring a city employee. So we had some discussions with the city manager, talked to that, and as it turns out, as I didn't realize, there had been some discussions in the past about possibly going these directions with building services. It's an enterprise fund, you get revenues, those revenues stay within that service, so it lends itself to this type of contracting service. We met with the Builders Association of Western Nevada. I think that their president, Aaron West, is here this morning to support this, I believe. We've had some positive feedback from various Chamber of Commerce also about moving this direction. So how this will work, and going back to the organization chart, what this is a contract to provide those services and fill those positions for the building official and inspections. We would keep the other city employees that we have existing and the contract, so they would fill those positions, provide all those services. The idea is that this would be seamless to the public, to anybody coming in to get a building permit. They're not going to know that whether or not this is a city employee. They're providing the service for the city. We have a building official sitting in the office. We have the inspector going out doing daily inspections, coordinating that with the office. So to the public, this is seamless. They don't know whether this is a city employee or not, and it really doesn't matter. They're providing the service for building permits. This contract is paid based on a percentage of building permit fees collected. So when fees are down, they collect less. When fees go up, they collect more, and that's commensurate with the amount of work that's done, basically for the building permits and inspections and plan reviews. On that subject, so we worked with finance, we ran the scenarios looking at what's anticipated. It's kind of hard to predict. Obviously, if you've seen the reports, permit revenues can be up and down in any given year. Certainly a big project can really have an impact on that. But kind of running the numbers over the last couple of years and the last year where we think it's kind of steadied off a little bit, we'd be at a little bit of a positive in terms of revenue, a little bit ahead of the game this year by about $30,000 by entering into this contract. So this would be within budget. So the city would still have some of the expenses related to the remaining employees, building, utilities and things that are associated with the building department. But Charles Abbott and Associates would be taking over some of the things. We have some cost savings in automobiles, for example, and other employee benefits type of things. This is not a new concept. In fact, Charles Abbott and Associates is doing this in numerous communities around the West, mostly in California. I've called some of them where they work and got positive feedback in all cases about how it's worked. In fact, they've been doing it for years. They're not new to this in these other communities either. So it's been a proven way to provide building services to a community. So before I get into questions, I would like for the record to make a couple of corrections to Exhibit A, which is the attachment to the contract itself. And Exhibit A, that's the scope of services that they'll be providing. The first one I want to note is on the first page of Exhibit A, Section 1A4, where it lists all these codes that they'll implement and enforce. And rather than list all those codes, we just want to say that they'll enforce the currently adopted code. So let me read that into the record. It would be amended to say, develop, amend, and maintain the ordinances and regulations necessary to implement and enforce the currently adopted building codes and ordinances deemed necessary by the city to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. So I want to recommend that change for the record. And just two more real easy items on page 3 of it, Section 1B3. There's a typo where it's certificate occupancy should say certificate of occupancy. And my last correction to it is item number 26 needs a period on the end. So just a couple clerical corrections there. I'll conclude my presentation with that. I'll note that Buster Scholl with CAA is in the audience, along with Ray Profit. Ray Profit is in the local Reno office. He is the one that would be sitting in the office here. They're both here to answer your questions as well, and I encourage you to ask questions of them. And I'll conclude my presentation with that and be available for questions now.
A couple of process questions here. One, Neil, this has the attachment is an exhibit, but it's also set to be executed, I think. So if this goes forward, we would execute the original, there'd be two executions then. Would it be the agreement and the standard boilerplate that we have, or standard contract? I don't mind signing two of them, but I think.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? In other words, there's
So are you saying there's really no need for the signature on the exhibit?
Well, as long as, yeah, as long as
referenced as
as
the
long as it's an exhibit and it's, it's referenced in the master
The contract is signed.
I don't know that everybody has to go back and sign that. It'd be not, I think that it's there. And so unless there's a need to have somebody, say that, or execute that. So.
I agree. That would be.
Okay, right. And I also want to say, just before we get started here, I had concerns about how these things work. In particular, what Exhibit A would look like. And I got to tell you, what? When I read Exhibit A, and I looked at the prior contracts that this company's entered into, they're very well done. And they give, for me anyway, they give protections as to what they're required to do, how they're required to do it, and what the measurements are for performance. And so that was a big thing for me. So I just want to put that on the record, and we'll go like this: Karen, Brad, and then John here. So.
Lee, with the modifications to 1A on Exhibit A, or 1A4, how does that affect, should we go forward with exempting buildings 2009 and older from energy codes?
Yeah, that would include any adopted, as adopted currently at any given time is how I would interpret that.
So that still is open as an option?
It would allow us to amend, yeah. In fact, it says develop, amend, and maintain the ordinance necessary. So that, again, further in their scope of services, that's part of what they do, is recommend changes, work with the board for change.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was, will they provide a complete list to customers for plan check requirements such that the customer is not having to, in other words, that we forward a business-friendly environment and they're not continually being hit with plan changes and checks?
Right. Yeah, I think I'd like them to answer that when the appropriate time. Yeah.
Good morning.
My name is Buster Scholl with Charles Abbott Associates.
Morning, Buster. Talk about multiple punch lists. Go.
Typically, we try to make sure that the applicant completely understands the corrections we write. We try to make them clear and concise and understandable. And after they resubmit the corrections the first time, if we can see they do not understand for some reason and don't answer all the corrections, we'll give them a phone call. We won't just be bouncing them back and forth, because that doesn't do anybody any good. We'll give them a phone call, try to make sure they understand the corrections, because we want to approve the plans as quickly as we can.
So you're promoting a user-friendly scenario. Okay, thank you. Appreciate.
And Buster, I think these questions are for you as well. And I think, just following up on Supervisor Abowd's concern, we've had some incidences in the past where plans would get submitted on first check. You get the red line. Those items would be taken care of and get submitted on second check, and it would then come back with red lines that weren't on the first plan check. And I think that's one of Karen's concerns as well. How do we prevent that from happening going forward, where you have a builder who comes in, brings checks, brings his plans in, gets them checked, and then on second check has new corrections that on the same plans that weren't there on the first check?
We understand that frustration, and what happens sometimes is when we write corrections on the first check, we get plans resubmitted that try to correct those items, but they don't totally correct them, and sometimes we have to write additional corrections to clarify those previous ones, and that's why we do the phone call, to try to explain why we're doing this, to make sure that the applicant understands. We try to preclude all of those additional concerns by doing a thorough review the first time. But we can't totally preclude the fact that there may be additional corrections based on what's resubmitted. That happens, but we try to preclude that to the extent possible.
And then there's two items in Exhibit A that came from your company that exceed our requirements in our contract, and I just wanted to put on the record that those items have been discussed between staff and yourself, and that you're comfortable that the items in Exhibit E are going to take precedent over our minimum requirements, and those were the insurance coverages, and then the plan check turnaround times. So in other words, in your letter, in your memo that you sent, you can guarantee turnaround times that are quicker than what we're requiring of you, and that's because of our interaction with other staff, correctly? With other agencies, fire, health?
Yeah, so in the contract, I'm sorry, as written into the exhibit is what we're going to require of them, which is the 15 days.
That's correct. It was, yeah, the memo is separate, correct.
They represent to us the ability to do it faster, but for the city's process and dealing with other departments in the city, are in the agreement, it's a little bit longer time periods than what, right.
And specifically for the record, the insurance coverages carried by Charles Abbott are approximately twice what we require as minimums, and the turnaround times are 10 days and 5 days for first check and second check in the memo, but we're at 14 and 7,
15
correct?
and 7.
15 and 7 in the contract.
Right.
Okay, great. And then one final item, I'd like to acknowledge the new executive director of the Builders Association of Western Nevada, Aaron, and I'd like to ask him if he has some input for us on this as well. It's good to see you, by the way.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Through you to Supervisor Benkowski, thank you very much for the introduction. For the record, Aaron West, the new CEO of the Builders, well, as a function of our rebranding, BON, the Builders Alliance. You'll start to see more and more from us as it relates to that. First and foremost,
it's good to see it mentioned in the paper today, too. You're in the paper, I think, right? Front.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we've had some conversation. We're hitting the ground. I appreciate the opportunity to be back and engaging within the Carson City after a little hiatus, but enjoying getting back at it. So first and foremost, I really want to thank Nick and the staff. I can tell you since coming on board, I've been truly honored with the level of participation and collaboration that we're seeing through BON and city staff. So we have been working together with them every step of the way as we've gone through this process, and we are very comfortable with where we're headed. Fundamentally, we are supportive of the privatization of services, fundamental services that make sense within the city. I think there's some key points within this contract that give us that level of comfort. The first one is we were, engaged on the level of service and the protections that are provided within the agreement that allow the industry to be, interactive and make sure that our needs are met. In terms of the flexibility through the private contract to be able to adjust to the market and the demands of the market, we think that is a key element to this. The scalability is important, and then also there's through the implementation of this contract, there's actually an improvement to our level of service from the city's perspective and from our member perspective in that the technology upgrades that are being brought to the table in terms of being able to do electronic plan submittal, and hopefully we can continue to work with the city to implement online permit payment and things of that nature that will, certainly improve the process and kind of help bring us into the 20th century. So with that, happy to answer any other questions.
I think we got, good to see you. Let's see where it goes. I got a couple other questions here. I just want to make sure that before I'm going to call on Supervisor McKenna, then Supervisor Shirk. This contract can be terminated with or without cause at any time, correct? I mean, and if it does, then there's, right.
Yeah, yes, I believe it, I'm looking for this.
Not that I'm looking forward to that, but as a lawyer, I kind of want to, there's no parachute issue there.
And that's how it was represented. I mean, part of this is while it's a 2-year term initially with the ability to extend, the termination clause number 26, the city may terminate the agreement without cause, notice within 30 days. So yeah, the point is, if they're not doing the job to our satisfaction, we have an out as the city to go another direction. So that's kind of an important thing that to us as we were going into this. So it's incumbent upon them to satisfy, these issues that we are, just like any other city employee. They need to be on board with city policy and how we want to run business.
And you see this as a public-private partnership?
Certainly.
Okay. Supervisor McKenna.
Yeah, I want to join in thanking the city manager, planning staff, and other management. This is the way to go, folks. This is the first step. We've been trying to get this done since I've been on the board, and even before, to get this function more efficient. And the use of modern electronic means, I think, is great. It'll also broaden our local knowledge of codes because they have a wider reach. They're dealing in various jurisdictions. They learn things that we will benefit from. I think we need to be sensitive still to the feedback from the users. The Builders Association or the non-Builders Association users, that sort of thing. And I'm sure they'll be sensitive to our community. The one thing I would like to see, if the builders or if the community wants it, is the use of modern electronic media such as smartphones, et cetera, to do the actual inspections on a needed basis. For example, if I needed a roof nailing pattern approved so I could put down shingles, and they can't get an inspector here that day or the next day or whatever the time frame is, why can't I take pictures of it, submit them, and get the approval that way? Whatever makes building, whatever makes business more efficient. The other thing I'd like to see is some type of work to develop local businesses to basically take over this operation and make it nationwide with people who live and work in Carson City.
I would also like to congratulate the new city manager and staff for looking for new means to accommodate the community and looking outside the normal box, and so congratulations for that. I really do appreciate that. Just a basic question, Lee, who do they report to?
So they fit within the city's organizational structure, so directly to me, they fall under community development, so they report to the community development director.
So you'll be working in conjunction with them and overseeing their operation, basically?
Basically, yes.
Okay, so that's the normal procedure. If we have a problem, we'll see you, and then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other board comments? Public comments, anybody? Ms. Bagwell, come on up.
Good morning again. Just a technical question on the contract and the attachments. When you look at the termination issues that you were discussing here, the for no cause is not noticed anywhere in here as to what that time frame is, but I think it was attempted in section 3.1. Your notice section, unless otherwise specified, termination shall not be effective until 30 calendar days after a party has served notice. I think that 30 days needs to be in your section 7 because nowhere do you give the time frame for actually terminating the contract. The section A in your attachment is 90 days in advance of the termination dates, not any of your for causes or for non-cause. So it's just a technical. I think you need to, in your section 7, indicate it's a 30-day notice at any time, because I don't think you've actually stated that in the contract. So just as a, take the section 3 and stick that in your termination.
Did you look at 7.4.1?
That's a, yeah, it just says
The
time.
reference to section 3?
That's a default or a breach. I'm talking about covering you just want out of the contract for no breach, no issue that you can give them notice.
Look at it. The
Just
theory is,
technical.
the theory, I mean, and I think that's why I put it on the record, is to make sure that, everybody knew that this is a no contract with no penalty for termination, early termination or otherwise. But that's not to say that we're doing this for 2 years. We're going to try it. I'm not trying to say, you know what, we're going to hire you and then you're going to go away in 30 days. But I just want to, so that people get a comfort factor that the termination can be, of the agreement can be for no cause, without penalty, okay? Other than what's due during the 30-day period there, okay? All right. Anything else? You okay, Neil?
I'm reviewing it right now, Mayor. I think it's fine the way it is. Subsection 3 refers specifically to 26 and says it can be terminated without cause, which is the board's concern, a good concern, obviously. And then, so I think it's fine, which is what your intent is.
All right, very good. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, my name is Keith Schaefer. I am currently the Capital Projects Manager for the Carson City School District, and I manage all of the construction projects, additions, remodels that we conduct at the school district, and I would love to be in support of this. I think it's a new day, and it gives us an opportunity to really look and see how this process has worked in the past and what we can do to improve it. I also am a licensed professional engineer, and I've worked in this town for almost 20 years as a professional engineer. And, I have talked to some of my associates. I'm not representing an engineers group. I'm also a past board of directors of the Builders Association of Western Nevada, and I know their membership very well. I learned about this happening kind of through the grapevine. Hearsay, folks who might have been at the meeting when some of these things were being discussed. One of the questions that I have heard discussed and asked in my discussions with some of the architects, and we use local architects here in town, and not one of them was at the table when Vaughn and other members of the community were brought to discuss this opportunity. And the discussion that we had was, your architects or your engineers are preparing the documents that have to comply with code. They're the professionals of record who are responsible for the compliance with code. And not one of those individuals was made party in the discussions of this moving forward, as far as I know. And it's the professional engineers and architects documents that they will be reviewing. And we've seen this is not new to us. Those of us who have been in business for 30 years, we've done work all over, northern Nevada and California and other states. And we've seen this process work very well in some areas and not so well in others. And the only thing that I would like to see, and of course we kind of feel a little bit like it didn't happen, at least at this part, up to this juncture, is access. Let me just give you an example. If I'm looking at an addition at Carson High or a significant tenant improvement for security purposes that we just recently went through, and we're talking about millions of dollars of construction and several thousands of dollars of permit fees that we're more than willing to pay and to have involvement with our building official. There will be parts of the code that we know what they are. I know in all of your professions, you understand and you know your code. And so we would understand a part of the code, and the architect would say, this is what it says, and this is how we think it might apply to your particular project. But we don't know how the building official will interpret this with regard to the project. So, code is not, you can read the words and you can say, it means this, and this is how we're going to apply the code. And we sometimes have to have access. We need to know what the answer is going to be to that design element before we get too far into design. Because it can mean literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost increase to a particular project that maybe we don't have in the budget. One might be, for example, at a local school, we are adding a little bit of square footage to create some secure entrance at Pioneer High School over on Corbett Street. We are not increasing the population. There's currently an office in that Pioneer High School that's in a portable. The addition that we're going to create is going to create an office suite that's going to be a brick and mortar. And in that building that we're putting that for the student population, it's the existing building and it's an old building, the bathrooms are not ADA accessible. Well, we can go from a $850,000 project to put a new office in there with some bathrooms for the office folks, or we can have a building official who would say, but you know what, now I need you to go over here and replace all these ADA bathrooms because you're touching the building. Now we're a $1.5 million to $2 million project, and when you get into that part of the building. Those are just things to consider. Those are the things that we live with day to day. And having access, and so I haven't seen the agreement. I don't even know what the relationship is going to be, and I'm sorry I missed it. I was trying to keep up with it. Well, I've got other moving dirt and putting concrete in some places today, but maybe some of my questions have been answered. But my question is this relationship going to be such that there will be a building official individual here all the time? So that when we call,
no, that's absolutely correct. It'll be transparent to you. I mean, you'll see that. I mean, and the agreement provides for that. There'll be a building official there all the time, and it also provides. I don't have it in front of the exact language, but you know, access is there. So,
right.
and I need to ask you for the record here: are you opposed to doing this, or?
No, I'm not opposed. Just don't know all of the parts and pieces. And some of our concerns are that, you know, Mr. McKinney, you spoke to that Charles Abbott has wide exposure, and they understand, and they've interpreted code for several different communities. Boy, that could change things in our community. You know, they might come up and say, hey, you know what, we now have to enforce these parts of the code that you haven't been enforcing. And sometimes those things are interpretations that are allowed to be made by the building official. And so, not opposed to it at all. Just need to have it in a way where we can call and say, hey, I have this design requirement, or maybe we're in the middle of construction. I've got a contractor who's on a time frame, and we need to make a revision. And it's going to mean some things. We need to have the official come out and look at that. So we're just talking about ease of access, understanding of local codes, not the implication of California building codes into Nevada. And I'm incredibly competent individuals. I know that's not those things. But I would also urge you to be very careful that as we move through this process into the future, that we don't begin to feel like, oh, we need to adopt some of those codes over here. Because if we think that building here is difficult with some of the newer codes, if we end up being a subset of the California building code, development here will be impacted. And so
I think one of the reasons why you're seeing this come before us today is that these folks deal with building codes in the state of Nevada for multiple municipal,
right. And I understand that.
Municipal organizations. And I will also tell you, I think that, you know, they can speak for themselves, but I think that there isn't anybody here that says, you know, the building codes are there for the health, safety, and welfare of your community. They're not there to stifle business, but they're there. So, you know, there has to be some judgment, and I think, you know, that's what you're going to see out of, you would see anyway, and hopefully you would see, but that's what you're going to see here.
Right.
Supervisor,
well, I appreciate that. I just wanted to voice that concern on behalf of the design community a little bit, for those at least that I have spoken to. Not one of them that I know of was brought to the table, but I've been in meetings on our projects with multiple architects and multiple engineers who said, who live in this town and do work in this town, and didn't know if this was happening until we saw it on the agenda, and had kind of heard.
Do you want us to hold it off and discuss it?
I don't think so. Not at all. Not at all. But, you know, maybe if we could get together sometime and have some of the architects in town that do a lot of work in this town, you know, come to understand a little bit now what we're up against, because it makes a big difference what you put on the paper. Those plans and specifications
Keith, I'd ask you also to take a close look at the contract, because
I'd
a lot
like
of
to
the
do
questions
that.
that you're talking about, I had similar concerns, and so take a look at that when you get a
Thank you.
chance. And okay,
I just wanted to express that.
you bet. All right, Supervisor Abel and Supervisor McCown.
Keith, all of your points are very well taken, and Phil's Harrington's here, and if he wouldn't mind speaking for a minute, flexibility and access and all those things were a large part of this discussion moving forward, and I think Phil can probably allay some of your apprehension.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and the board, interim building official Phil Harrington, thank you for the comment and allowing me to address that. I believe that that anyone that is designing a project, whether it's a homeowner or a professional, that you include the city, and that it's not just the building department, but it's all the functions of the city that review the plans. Please include the city as part of the design team. Now, we're not the designers, we're plan checkers, but Keith's comment is absolutely true. A designer will spend months and months developing a set of plans, bring them into the building official, and then there's issues at how, you look at a job. One thing I also would recommend that we don't call them deficiency lists. It's only comments from the building official. It might be just a clarification, but all those things are addressed on a preliminary basis before a building permit is even applied to. So my emphasis to the design community is please involve the city in a preliminary design. We're part of that team, and you can see from Keith's comments how essential that is. And I hope, does that answer? Thank you.
Hang on a minute. I got a supervisor.
No, go right ahead.
For the record, Aaron West again with Bond. I thought it might be helpful to maybe provide a little context. In terms of conversations with Bond, as an association, I'm not the one that's actually pulling permits. So as we went through this process, we thought it was important to engage the folks that do. So in the presentation from ACC and the questions that were provided, we actually engaged a prominent commercial builder, Kerry Richardson through Bill Miles Construction, and then also brought in Sam Landis with Silver Oak and Silver Ridge. So we wanted to put people in there who have that day-to-day interaction, who are going to be working through this process and working directly with these folks. And I will tell you that a lot of positive, a lot of good commentary back and forth resulted from that interaction. And key to what some of the concerns that were just brought up was the idea that regardless of whether it was, what direction we were going with this, it was still paramount that we have access to that building official within that office. And so I think that was the critical piece for us, is the fact that we are going to have a designated building official. We can tell already that the culture within the department is shifting in a very positive way, and there's been a commitment to maintain that shift in the culture. And so with that in mind, I think we felt very comfortable with moving forward.
Okay, John.
Yeah, going in this direction is a major step for Carson City. We had a building department that had declined in its ability to provide service through people leaving. The city manager was faced with a decision, we're faced with a decision as to whether we go the old way and we have a building department and hire people and make it a totally government function, or we go a new way and basically get modern. We had to keep the information fairly small, I guess, in the people that were involved in the meetings, simply because we didn't know what we were going to get at the end of this thing. But I guarantee you that all of the questions that anybody has will be answered by these gentlemen, because The idea is to make it transparent. You go down to the building department, you get your building needs taken care of. Or you email somebody, and that may be in California, it may be in Sparks. You shouldn't notice a difference. And if we're going to change how we do business as a government, we're going to have to move some of these functions outside of Carson City. And that's what's happening here. What I'd like is Mr. Abbott to address the concerns of the architects community and also address training for Carson City's builders and architects, et cetera.
Thank you, Supervisor McKenna. First of all, to answer the question, we really encourage pre-design meetings. It precludes a lot of problems and a lot of headaches on the designer side and on the city side. That way, the plans, when submitted, can be approved much more quickly without any issues being arising out of the initial review. So we're a big advocate of pre-design meetings and pre-submittal meetings. And like Phil mentioned, I think it's real important to involve all the players in the city that may be involved in providing conditions on that project. As far as your second question about training, we try to have workshops whenever we come into a new community with the Contractors Association and the Association of Designers, Architects, Engineers, to let them know that we're here and we want to accommodate their needs to the extent we can and provide the answers to any questions like this gentleman brought up today. I think we can create a, like you mentioned, a transparent and can-do building division. That's what we've done in other locations, and we intend to do that here as well.
And just to add to what you said, so you don't hide behind the code book. You offer creative solutions so that you can get through to the end game for the user.
Yes, absolutely. We try to look at the code as the minimum requirements. And the code does allow for alternate methods, materials, and there are some gray areas of the code. And we try to come up with the best, most flexible answer we can find and give different options to the design professionals so they can take advantage of those options. We don't like beating people over the head with the code. We want to enforce the minimum requirements and find ways to approve things, not find ways to turn them down.
Darren, I saw you come in. Do you want to say anything? Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, Darren Berger. I'm an architect here in Carson City. I apologize. I am not prepared at all. I'm very busy with both work and family.
Glad you're busy.
Yes. You know what? There's nobody more glad.
Don't feel, I just call you in case you want to say something. Don't feel compelled to say it.
Okay. Yeah, I did, but I'm unrehearsed, and even when I'm rehearsed, I don't speak very well, so apologize. I just wanted to say a couple of things. I have not been engaged as a design professional on this decision, and I would like to be part of that process. I think that's very important because these are individuals that I'm, dealing with from my line of work, and I'd like to have a say in that process. So there's that, and then in addition to that, I'd like to see monies generated in Carson City being paid to people in Carson City and being spent in Carson City. So I'm not sure that I'm a fan of this being what am I trying to say?
Public-private partnership?
Yeah, to some, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got you.
So unrehearsed.
You're doing all right. You're doing all right, Darren.
Okay, that's
all right.
what I wanted to.
Thanks.
bring up.
I figured you wanted to say something when you came in.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good. All right. All right. Other public comment? Not, let's bring it back to the board, see where it goes. John, you want to make a motion?
Sure do.
All right.
I move to determine that contract number 1415-050 is a contract for professional services and therefore not suitable for public bidding pursuant to NRS 332.115, and to approve contract number 1415-050, a request for professional services to be provided by Charles Abbott Associates Incorporated through September 2nd, 2016, for an amount established solely from a percentage of the building permit fees collected as identified in the contract, to be funded from the building division building permit revenues as provided in fiscal year 2014-2015 and fiscal year 2015-2016, as modified as discussed by the building department.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor McKenna, second by Supervisor Bonkowski on the motion. Discussion. Discussion's in order. Go.
I would just like to say to allay Darren's fears that a lot of the things that you talked about were discussed and at length, and trying to make our building process going forward be more user-friendly was paramount. Unfortunately, Charles Abbott is located, they have a Reno office, that's as close to home as we could get. But with regards to your other fears, I do strongly feel that this is a step in the right direction.
I have to agree with Supervisor Bao. The thing is, putting together a significant change to the way Carson City does government, I think had to be done in a way that suited the city manager's sensibilities. There were employees to be, worries, et cetera. There was an ongoing job to be considered, that sort of thing. We couldn't invite everyone in to have an open public discussion of this. There was no intention to preclude building professionals from being involved in this, or citizens from being involved in this. And as you've heard, Mr. Abbott, there will be training. This contract can be modified if there's something that doesn't meet the building professionals' desires. As far as money staying in Carson City, I don't disagree with you at all. We run into this all of the time, from acquiring vehicles to low bid contracts, et cetera. It's the desire that I have is that people that live here do business with people that are here. The Chamber agrees with that. The reality of the world is it's expanding. I have to do business in foreign countries in my profession. I have to. There's no way around it. It's just a reality of the world we have to live with. If we can get our local youth trained in these modern methods, then we can start exporting this type of business from Carson City. There's no reason why a professional in Carson City cannot do business anywhere in the world.
Jim.
Well, it's been mentioned twice with the discussion. I need clarity as to what discussion you're talking about when you say discussion, with what groups? It's the first I've heard of it. Was board members involved in this?
Yeah, come on.
We reached out to both the Builders Alliance of Western Nevada as well as the Carson City Chamber of Commerce. We invited the mayor to be part of that discussion and one other supervisor.
And the fire chief.
And the fire chief, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything further? On the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried, unanimous. Okay, thank you. Look forward to working with you folks. All right. Make sure that your judgment is properly exercised.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before he takes off, Phil. Mr. Mayor.
Come on up here. Come on up, Phil. Interim manager.
If I could recognize one individual in front of the board, with your permission. Mr. Phil Harrington, at a very dynamic time and at no notice, very selflessly agreed to come out of retirement. He's a former chief building official of Carson, and he is the current and soon-to-be former chief building official once again. He came in at a very chaotic time, provided a calm, steady hand of leadership. Phil, you came aboard as a colleague, you leave as a friend, and I appreciate your service. Thank you.
Gives me goosebumps.
Good, Phil. Well, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Phil. All right. All right.
It's been really an honor and a pleasure to come back, and it was very gratifying to me to be received like I did. Because when I left, they say, well, here's the gold watch, we'll see you, in retirement. But this has really been a neat experience for me, and I hope I did provide the community, the board, and the manager, and my boss, Lee, with some comfort in the operation of the building department during this very trying time. And thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil,
very much.
Also, Mr. Mayor, Buster, if I could ask you to introduce the incoming chief building official.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. This is Ray Profit. He is our proposed city building official. He has about 40 years of experience. In fact, Ray and I go way back. We both started in San Bernardino County back in 1978 on the same day. So I've known Ray for years, and I think you'll find that he brings a lot of the same characteristics that Phil brings to the job. He's very open to the public, very user-friendly, and I think you'll be very happy with his performance.
Want to say anything? Come on.
Ray Profit for the record, hopefully incoming building official for Carson City.
Well, I think you are, so not hopefully anymore, as about 2 minutes ago.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, basically reiterate what Buster has indicated, that my style of managing is very open. I am more than willing to talk with any of the designers, any of the builders, homeowners, and will endeavor to do my best to ensure that there is an extremely smooth transition from Phil over to Charles Abbott. And if any of the board members would like to get in touch with me, feel free. I'm available at any time.
Very good.
Thank you.
Send your cell phone number out. All right. Anything else, Nick? That cover that?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to item number 16, non-action items, Board of Supervisors. Future agenda items. Anybody want to put anything up for discussion? Review of projects. Anybody? Let me say just a couple things while we're. I was at a meeting with the director of prison, the Nevada State Prison out here, and also with, because there's a committee that's met, as we know, to implement Assembly Bill 364, which asks us to consider and to study the potential uses of the prison. And there's a report that has been completed, or it's in the process of being completed right now. That will be out, and at the same time, I think what we're going to, subject to what state land says, is that we're going to ask the legislature through, and Assemblyman Hickey graciously offered to reserve a bill draft request for this committee if we need it. And this would allow state lands to, it would enable state lands to, one, create endowment accounts for the prison, multiple endowment accounts if necessary. It would allow state lands to enter into public-private partnerships for the operation of a museum or commercial activities at that museum. It would be enabling legislation. It wouldn't be a cost. It would not be a financial issue. It would just be enabling. But it would be a step in implementing the work that this committee's done for the last year. So hopefully that was going to be done. And I think that the Historic Commission, there's been a representative on there. Susan was there quite a bit of the time. So I think you're going to see that move forward. I think it's in the state land shop now to see, you know, if this is something they can do, and hopefully they'll come to a good decision on that. Also, the V&T Railroad, they've got a request in for a permit to build a standalone metal shed up at the Eastgate Center, so that will allow for folks taking the Polar Express and otherwise, so that you don't have to stand in a tent or stand outside. So there'll be, and that'll be constructed there. The city's been very accommodating, and I want to say Phil Harrington has been very accommodating to helping and fire. Stacy, your folks there, been very accommodating to see that we can get this shed up and running for the time for Polar Express to come through. So that's what's going on, and with respect in my you know, that I've been involved in the past month here on the prison and the V&T. So, anything else? Anybody? We ready to, Nick, what you got?
Mr. Mayor, based on public comment at the opening, the Public Works Director is prepared to offer a few interim comments on the effects of the flood and the floods, plural, and the city response to them. So, Darren.
Thank you. For the record, Darren Schultz, Public Works Director. I'm not going to get into this too much today. I promised just maybe a couple minutes. Basically, over the last month, we've had 2 substantial floods. We're determining exactly the level of those floods. They're going to be somewhere in between the 100 and 200 year level, which is extreme. It is not a flood that we design and that we plan for, because if we did, we couldn't afford to live in this community. So frankly, we're investigating exactly what happened to us, what level it is, and what it means to us moving forward. We're planning to bring back a full term, in detail presentation, the second meeting in September, of exactly what happened in the flood, what we're doing as far as trying to mitigate what happened, and then our steps for moving forward. I can say that the flood of July 20th happened on Sunday. We're approximately 60 to 65% cleaned up on that. That was on the very south side of Carson City, the south end of Center Street. We're going to continue. Everything is open and passable down there, but we have a lot of ditches that are still full of debris and sand. We're going to continue that process of cleaning that up. We anticipate that taking another 6 to 8 weeks down there. The last flood that happened on August 11th, Monday, unfortunately, it hit a little bit more parts of the city, both the north, the east, and the southeast. We are underway cleaning up out there. Everything is passable, everything is open, but we have a lot of work to do as far as cleanup. A lot of ditches are full, a lot of rubble has moved from one area to another. It has to be placed back. We are in the process of using city staff, public works crews to clean that up. We are also hiring contractors on small contract basis, $20,000 to $25,000 to go out and assist us with that, just because of the amount of material that has to be moved and fixed is great. We anticipate that effort also taking another 6 to 8 weeks before it's all done, cleaned up, put back in place. I am not prepared today to address questions about, well, what do we do when the next one hits? We're looking at this as, this is, politics aside, this is some sort of climate change. This hasn't happened in our history where we've had 2 back-to-back like that, of that caliber. As far as moving forward, we will have a plan that we bring back to you and say this is how we're going to address it, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Jim, go first, John.
Yeah, I just want to state that I've been in close contact with you through numerous citizens who had contacted me and so forth. And I just want to say the city's response to those areas that you mentioned was quick, it was fast, and they were very efficient at getting the debris off the roadway and really taking the time to make sure that they spoke with neighbors, and you personally took a great interest in this, and your department heads out there that I met with on the daily basis that when I was out there did a fantastic job, and thank you.
Thank you. Pass that along.
I'd like to also agree with Supervisor Shirk that I received phone calls within minutes of your crews arriving, and it was early in the morning. Your people were out there. They were efficient. Surprised a lot of people over on the Deer Run area, the Carson River Road area. It was amazing how much damage was done in how little of time. But everyone that I have talked to is very pleased with everything that's happened. I drove up Gonai yesterday, and there's 5 or 6 trucks up there with a couple of vacuum trucks, and it's an all-out effort, and I think the residents appreciate it. When you go to comments, Mr. Mayor, I have a comment also.
We're on.
Okay.
We're on comments.
We're on board comments. Last night, Supervisor About and I went to the Carson Water Subconservancy District meeting. We toured the Virginia City water system. For those that don't know it, Carson City and Virginia City share the water system out of Marlette Lake, and Virginia City is making some significant improvements. And I think that there might be some synergies there where we can, Carson City can work with Virginia City to make it an even more regional aspect of the Marlette Lake water system. The other thing that happened last night at the Carson Water Subconservancy District meeting, and Darren, you need to contact these people, because we reviewed films of the Douglas County flash flood events. And if you see those and know anything about how to lay out landscape buildings, etc., it is very difficult to understand what happened because the slope was not that great. The rain event wasn't that long. The soil moved in areas where you didn't think it was. There are some things in Douglas County that they're looking at, such as flood or stormwater outlet pipes to retention basins were focused upon subdivisions across the street, and that's why the subdivision across the street got flooded. So there's some building aspects there, that sort of thing. Douglas County is making a thorough review. I think we ought to have a regional effort to review what happened there, because as was pointed out to Mr. Dolly and myself and the city manager, Carson City is also on the south side of the river. We had a resident from over there who basically had to hire equipment and plow his own roads because BLM wouldn't do it. So it's a regional problem. It's not just a Carson City problem.
Darren, I think we're going to end up making this unanimous in our commendations of your department. I just wanted to thank you for personally, as well as your staff, taking care of every citizen that contacted me, and I followed up with them, and they're all extremely happy with your department. Thank you.
Ditto. Everyone that I talked to was thrilled with the response. And I would just add to what John had to say, that in your evaluation going forward, that you work with the Carson Water Subconservancy District, because that was a large part of last night's conversation, is how we deal going forward with these type of events, which are difficult to plan for. Is it retention basins? What is it? You know, how do we deal with the alluvial fans? And in talking to Barry Pinzel from Douglas County, as John mentioned, some of the newer subdivisions in Douglas County, their drainage pipes were like cannons shooting water into the next development. So there has to be a better way.
Very good. Very good. And Nick, by the way, Barry Pinzel is a Ranger Colonel out of our age, my age, not yours.
The good old days, sir.
The good old days. The good old days. All right. Are we through with public comment and me making facetious comments? Comments? No, to go.
You'll see in.
Oh, yeah. Hang on 1 second, then we'll do it.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that you'll see in today's paper that the candidate who was our second choice for city manager appears to now going to be our Douglas County manager. So I think that's good news for all of us. Well, it's a win-win situation. We not only got our first choice, we also end up getting to work with our second choice.
Thanks. Now, public comment, I think. Yeah, public comment. Good morning still.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Bonnie Vivant. I live here in Carson City. I've been a 40-year Carson City resident. And I, too, as a citizen, would like to commend and thank the Public Works Department. My home is on the east side of Prison Hill. It took 95% of the mud that came off of Prison Hill. I stopped counting the truckloads of mud they were hauling from the front of my house at 40 truckloads. The Public Works did a fantastic job in coming in, getting the road clear so the people who live in Deer Run can get to their property. I'm still overwhelmed by the whole thing. We're still digging out 11 days later. I really appreciated the way the Public Works, the people that I dealt with, handled this. They were courteous, they were concerned, and they cared. They cared that we were in that position. They came in with their trucks, cleared it all out within 45 minutes of the rain stopping. They were there. They were there until 8:30 at night cleaning that road. And I think they did a fabulous job. They came back, when they left, it was probably 6 feet of dirt on the right-of-way in front of our property, tons of dirt. They came back the next morning and removed that so my husband and I could hire somebody to come in and remove 4 feet of mud from our 50-foot driveway. And we moved it out to the right-of-way, and they came back and took that. So I'm very, very appreciative, and I know that we're not the only game in town. There were a lot of people who were affected by this. The one thing that I am concerned about, and I think that when I was talking to some of the people at Public Works, they said they were going to get with the powers that be and decide what they were going to do. But unfortunately, the culvert that drains is a big 3-footer, and up until this year, it's always handled it. This year, it got overwhelmed and it couldn't handle it, and that's when the boulders and the dirt and everything came off of Prison Hill right in our yard. Because they had so much going on and so much to do, they just cleared the area and pushed dirt back up in there. And that culvert that came down out of the mountain, if you look at it, it comes down and drains directly into that. We have a 20-foot easement on our property for that purpose, to drain this water. And like I said, never had this kind of a situation. We've had drainage before, but the culvert always handled it. The way that they had to fill it in and push it in, that culvert and that drainage ditch on the west side used to be 6 feet deeper, and it could drain through. Now it's 4 feet above the street level. If we get any precipitation, I'm going to be loaded with mud in my yard again. I realize, like I said, we're not the only game in town. There's a lot of people who have been hurt by this, but I'm very, very concerned that whatever your people do, they got to look at that, because
I saw Darren back there making a note. He was making a note.
Well,
so
anyway, as a citizen, I am very, very happy with the way that my city handled this situation.
Well, thank you. Hopefully.
And I appreciate the work that they do. I know they have a lot more to do, so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, very much. Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? I don't see any. Are we ready to adjourn to, Neil, help me here. Do I recess or I adjourn, and then, because we're going to have conversations with management representatives, right?
Right. Are we doing that pursuant to?
Yeah, it's pursuant to 288.220 subsection 4.
Right. So it's
And John, I think, last time we did this, Randy said we didn't have to do a motion, so I don't know, but I think what we're going to do, we'll say it like this. We're going to adjourn, and following this adjournment, we're going to stay in place here because we're going to have a closed meeting with our management representatives to discuss labor negotiations pursuant to NRS 288.220 subsection 4. And John, if that doesn't work, we're going to do a motion, but go ahead.
No, it's fine with me as long as everyone understands we're going to have a closed meeting that is allowed under the open meeting law, and we are going to follow the open meeting law. Any action, discussion on an action, that sort of thing will take place in public session at a agendized meeting, properly noticed, et cetera.
Thank you. All right. Unless there's anything else, we are adjourned.